Chapter 245. The Broken-Hearted Boys. When the unprecedented White Emperor was born, on a hill outside of Celian, the Dark Shadow Spider Queen was looking at the sacred city from a distance. He is awesome. He deserves to be my thing. The slimes the Dark Shadow Spider Queen control had increased to 10 times more than before. Apart from these common green slimes, she also had dozens of high-class slimes, who just escaped from the city. These high-class slimes looked like humans. Because there were a lot of girls of deep-sea races in this city, so they successfully sneaked into the ceremony like fish in troubled waters. Unfortunately, their identities were exposed, because their intelligence was too low. They didn't know how to respond to Yunshi's proposal. Seeing this, the Dark Shadow Spider Queen had to order them to retreat. He can even successfully propose to 1,000,000 girls. I want him more. The Dark Shadow Spider Queen licked her lips with a burning desire. That man could make yummy food from nothing and had excellent governability. Although she just took a glimpse to Yunshi through the slime's eyes, she could still sense the sweet smell of his body. Humph. He is just a phony publicity seeker. Such a salacious man isn't worth a hill of beans. Child Yun, he said in a contemptuous tone. However, the burning emotion called jealousy in his eyes had exposed what he was really thinking. I won't obtain the things I want with blandishments. I will rob all things with my strength. Child Yun, he ground his teeth. Even if he has succeeded marrying the 1,000,000 girls, then what? Can he really possess them all? Eventually, he is just a fribble, a liar. Yes, even if he has 1,000,000 brides, they can do no help for him. Yes, I have obtained the evil god Tlahui's Kalpantikutli's power. How will I be inferior to such a liar? Once I accomplish the blood sacrifice to the evil god, I can trample him as easy as stepping on an ant. It's too ridiculous to marry 1,000,000 girls. In the Sky Swords camp, the young boys complained. There must a hole in this guy's head. How can he himself satisfy 1,000,000 brides? What the hell is he doing? Some people got exasperated. Oh, I like that priestess. She also accepted that man's proposal. She must have been hoodwinked. Some people were utterly disheartened. Burn, 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 kill, kill, kill. Some people went crazy with jealousy. They had held torches and sickles in their hands. Before the battle between the two camps started, the young boys of the Sky Swords camp had had a common goal. Catch that pervert called White Emperor and cut him into 1,000 pieces. From the bread-making ability he had showed in the small village, this man couldn't be a native but a person from another world, just like them all. Because this world didn't have a food called bread, not even the making method. When they arrived at this world, they were placed on an island with monsters everywhere. They were hungry and thirsty. Fortunately, Child Yun, he summoned the evil god Tlahui's Kalpantikutli and led them so they could leave the island. Otherwise, they would all have starved to death. As for this man, he first arrived at this world and then immediately became the god's apostle. He was respected everywhere. Even when he said, I want to marry 1,000,000 girls, the whole of this world still revolved around him. What had they experienced in this world? Death trials. Tall bird, blood-eye crow, red hound, blue hound, deer clop. They would never know what kind of monster would rush out from the mist and take away their lives. Even if they died, they would revive in a random place on the island. The countless deaths and rebirths had tortured them in hell. Finally, when Child Yun, he told them that they could escape from this painful cycle of mortality once they believed in the evil god Tlahui's Kalpantikutli, they all accepted it. After that, they joined the evil god's camp and escaped from the deadly island. Then they cooperated with the Sky Swords camp and finally became the Dark Shadow Spider Queen's collaborators. Remembering the miserable experience they had suffered, and the handsome treatment the White Emperor had enjoyed, these young boys only wanted to cry. We are all outsiders to this world. Why are you the only one who can be treated with kindness? If this world is a trial, then we must be experiencing the hell mode and the White Emperor is experiencing the easy mode. No, he is like playing the easy mode with a cheat. Even now they could also vaguely hear the girls laugh from a distance. Oh, what a beautiful ring. Am I not dreaming? A young priestess looked at her hand in surprise and pinched her hand. Incidentally, she was one of the young boy's dream lover. No, I can't feel pain from my hand. Am I really dreaming? No, let me pinch my hand again. Of course you don't feel pain, you are pinching my hand. The young priestess partner complained. No, I want to die. I have never been so angry in my life. I will take revenge on him. I will sell myself to the great evil god Tlahui's Kalpantikutli. I will take my dream lover back. On the hill, the young boys cried and cursed their unlucky fate, wailed like ghosts and howled like wolves. P.S. Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. https://www.amazon.com dp B07D6D D5H5, from C1 to C62, https://www.amazon.com dp B07D D59Q6, from C63 to C144. If any of the two volumes can enter the top 10,000 ranking before the 31st of July, 2018, I will release 6 chapters per week. If any of the two volumes can enter the top 5,000 ranking before the 31st of July, 2018, I will release 7 chapters per week. Also, if anyone buys and leaves a comment on the Amazon pages, I will post an additional chapter as a token of my gratitude. Chapter 246. Embark on the road. The next 3 days, the people of the whole city sank to immerse up and down in the atmosphere of the merriment. After accepting Yunshi's proposal, the girls from all over the world started to decorate the old city of water with all their enthusiasm. Because there were really too many brides, the betrothal gifts were so many that they could even fill dozens of palaces. These girls laughed and sang the songs they learned from the 3 high priestesses, expressing their joyful feeling. Looking at these girls from the top of the tall bell tower, Yunshi showed a thoughtful expression on his face. This moment, he was thinking about the truth of the universe and the theory of everything. Come on, stop pretending. I know you have already grinned from ear to ear in your heart. But I tell you, really, don't do anything to them. Yun-Q sneered in a cold tone. She stared at Yun-Shi as if she was looking at a pile of garbage. They are all good girls. It's too pity to let them fall into your hands. Yes. I don't deserve to have them. I'm already very satisfied to have their missed souls. Yun-Shi shrugged his shoulders. He didn't sit idle all day in the past 3 days. Instead, he studied how to command his missed soul army with all his heart and soul. With the help from the 3 high priestesses and Yun-Q, he finally figured out something. I'm really curious about you. Although I'm the one who suggested you to do it, this plan shouldn't have been accomplished so perfectly. Who are you? Why can you do this? Yun-Q questioned Yun-Shi with confusion in her eyes. The more she knew the man who called himself Yun-Hai, the more surprising features she could find in him. She did propose the expansion plan of 1,000,000 brides, however, she didn't really think that the number of Yun-Shi's brides could reach 1,000,000. Is he really a human? Even if he is a god, it's hard to believe that he can achieve such a miracle. What charm does he have? How could he capture 1,000,000 young girls' hearts so easily? This was so ridiculous. She had no theory to explain it. As an elite assassin of the 10 Leaves Alliance, she had seen too many things and experienced too many battles. However, she still hadn't saw anyone who was similar to this Yun-Hai. Probably it's because there is a great will that is blessing me. Yun-Shi referred to the stars. After all the things that had happened were parts of the stars' plan. He was the only person who knew that this world was just a trial for himself. Humph. It's difficult to understand why the water god likes you so much. Of course, Yun-Q didn't know the existence of the stars. She thought that the great will Yun-Shi said before meant the water god. About this, I don't understand either. Yun-Shi also felt strange about this. Why would the water god find him immediately after he left the bonfire? Why would the water god confer him the White Emperor mask without hesitation? Everything started from that moment. At the beginning, he planned to join the Sky Swords camp and fight together with his childhood sweetheart, Hua Huo, but now, he had stepped on this road of no return. Whatever, but you shouldn't have any more contact with these girls. Now, it's time to leave this city, it's time to save this world. Yun-Q stood upright with strong determination in her eyes. Everything she did was for this moment. She didn't mind being called unscrupulous and ruthless, because she had judged it with the balance of her justice. Compared to finding the most excellent bride for the water god, the expansion plan of 1,000,000 brides was more effective. Now, Shea Longness, the Sky Sword's coming had reached its last phase, and she had also found out where the Sky Sword's base camp was. The Island of Mist. It was the scariest place in this world. Even the 3 high priestesses were prohibited to go to there. At the same time, it was also the most chaotic area in this world, where it was easy to summon living beings into this world from outside worlds. According to what she had known from the Lamias and the mermaids, they had seen a lot of living beings suddenly appearing on the island. Although they were also from other worlds, they had chosen the Sky Sword's camp, and the Island of Mist had become the location of the Sky Sword's camp. Yes, I will fight for them. I want to do something for these girls who believe in me. She slowly stood up and looked at the city together with Q. Since I have given them my promise, I must protect them and create a beautiful homeworld for them. Q looked at she in surprise. Maybe this man isn't totally helpless. However, it won't change the fact that he is still too salacious. Let's go. Maybe I can attend your wedding when we come back. It must be very pleasing to marry 1,000,000 girls, don't you think so? Q teased. She gave her a quizzical look. Why do your words make me have an ominous presentiment? As white mist rose from the ground, she and Q embarked on their road. The next, they would face the strongest being in the Sky Sword God's domain. In the Water God Temple, the 3 high priestesses watched she and Q on the mirrored surface of the sea demon's mirror. I'm worried about them. Why don't we go with them? The Lamia queen looked anxious. Yes, as his bride, I should fight shoulder to shoulder with him at this moment, the mermaid queen said with a bad feeling in her heart. She could feel a special atmosphere between she and Q. Don't doubt his choice. It's a forbidden area to us all. Besides, we have offered him our powers, so we should trust him. We should believe that he can return in peace and live happily with us forever after that. The Celian queen shook the water god's scepter with a tender look. On the tall tower, the bell rang again, blessing for the 2 apostles. P.S. Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. https://www.amazon.com DP-B07D6D D5H5, from C1 to C62, https://www.amazon.com DPB07 Duty 59Q6, from C63 to C144, if any of the 2 volumes can enter the top 10,000 ranking before the 31st of July, 2018, I will release 6 chapters per week. If any of the 2 volumes can enter the top 5,000 ranking before the 31st of July, 2018, I will release 7 chapters per week. Also, if anyone buys and leaves a comment on the Amazon pages, I will post an additional chapter as a token of my gratitude. Chapter 247, The Frightening Army. After leaving the Celian city, she and Q flew all day and all night and finally arrived at the Forbidden Zone, where the Celian queen was severely injured and returned with disappointment. The mist is thick. Is this the source of all mist tides in this world? Looking at the huge wall of mist from hundreds of meters away, Q could sense a huge evil intention inside it. Unlike the common mist all over the water god's world, the mist here was cold and suffocating. She could imagine what a disaster it would become if the mist here spread around this world. From the countless records about mist tide, she had seen countless names on the bloody death list. The people who had survived the mist tides could even be counted by bending the fingers. Especially males. There was barely no man who had survived any mist tide. The mist here is strange. As the White Emperor Mask's owner, she could control all mists in this world. Naturally, he sensed something unusual in the mist. The mist not only contained the water god's smell. There was something else inside it. From the very first day she came to this world, he could feel the water god's love for this world. There were sweet spring waters and delicious fruits all over this world. The land so was fertile, where anyone could feed the population 10 times or more. If there wasn't any mist tide in this world, the water god's world could be more beautiful and peaceful. I have a bad feeling. Maybe we are still too slow. Yun Q's sharp eyes were looking at some strange creatures who were wandering around on the edge of the mist. These creatures had green bodies. No, it wasn't the crystal green of the common slimes, but a much darker, mud-like green. Apart from this, their bodies were also too huge that they couldn't hide in the mist. Are they giant slimes? These strange green slimes were all as big as a small hill. The smallest giant slime was about 10 meters tall, and the biggest giant slime was over 30 meters tall. The most important thing was, they were eating each other and becoming much bigger. She could imagine what would happen if they left the island of mist. They were not as harmless as the common green slimes. Their huge bodies would become a big moving disaster to the people in this world. Let's fight. Yun Q drew her black long bow. They had done everything they could do, and now, it was time to fight. Only the victor could obtain the future. This world didn't need two godlike beings. Between the water god and the sky sword, only one of them could become this world's master. Open the door. My brides, come to this world. She stretched out his hand and waved in the air. A mist door appeared and opened behind him. A well-organized mist soul army walked out of the mist door behind Yunshi. The mist souls floated in the air, above the limitless sea surface. 4/5 of them were humans and 1/5 of them were sea demons. They were all Yunshi's brides. The total number of Yunshi's mist soul brides was 1,001,370. They were the last result of Yun Q's expansion plan of 1,000,000 brides. In the front of Shea Longness, the Sky Sword Slime Army, only Yunshi's Mist Soul Army had the possibility to defeat them all. Attack the enemies. Yun Q took a glance at the dark elf in the center of the Mist Soul Army, then moved her eyes back and drew the longbow in her hand. Countless red lotus arrows shot to the giant slimes from Yun Q's longbow. The dark elf Mist Soul raised the black sword in her hand and commanded other Mist Souls in silence. She didn't need to speak, because Mist Souls had a special mental bond amongst each other. This was a perfect army that all commanding officers had dreamed of. Boom, 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 boom. With earth-shaking explosion, the Mist Soul army pressed forward with indomitable will. They wouldn't die and wouldn't feel afraid. Even if their partners' bodies had been torn into pieces in the explosion or were squashed by the giant slimes, their hearts wouldn't shake. On the contrary, their attacks could actually hit on the giant slimes' bodies. Swords, arrows, magics, and divine spells, they all caused true damage to these giant slimes. After shooting an arrow, Yun Q had found that she didn't need to attack anymore, because the Mist Soul army had overwhelmed the giant slimes. They were faster than lightning and more nimble than the leaves in the wind. Yun Q couldn't describe how strong this army was, because even the 10 Leaves Alliance didn't have such a super army. As the first line of defense of the Sky Swords camp, the giant slimes couldn't even hold on 15 minutes. Before that, they had all been slaughtered and only left a pile of green cores on the ground. Under the Dark Elf's control, the Mist Soul army exposed a terrifying force. Their swords could cut open the sea and the sky. Their spells could summon hails, lightning and storms. The Mist Soul army was formed by 1,000,000 girls, which meant that the army could use almost all attacking methods these girls knew and their bloodline powers. When these girls' powers were gathered together and controlled by a great commander, the Dark Elf, their actual power was even stronger than Yun Q had guessed. This battle is over. She stepped on the island and picked up one green core after another from the ground. The green bracelet on She's arm looked very interested in the green cores. It immediately absorbed these green cores all. Your Mist Soul army is really a horrible monster, Yun Q said. Although this army was created by herself, and her Mist Soul was even this army's commander, Yun Q still thought that its power was much too strong and that it shouldn't be able to appear in this world. P.S. Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. https://www.amazon.com dp B07D6D D5H5, from C1 to C62, https://www.amazon.com dp B07 DYD59Q6, from C63 to C144. Chapter 248, The Third Phase. The giant slime flock, which could destroy a kingdom easily, was killed off by Yun Shi's Mist Soul army within 15 minutes. Even if it was the 10 Leaves Alliance's elite army, without hero-ranked warriors' assistance, they would need to pay a heavy price to defeat these tough enemies. But now, the Mist Soul army slaughtered these giant slimes like breaking a dead branch from a tree. Till now, Yun Shi had only put 10,000 Mist Souls into the battlefield, and most Mist Souls were still staying behind the Mist Door. It's so lucky that we are in the same camp. Yun Qiu sorted out her feelings. Is my Mist Soul really the supreme commander of this strong army? It's like a dream. It's because we have an excellent commander. I'm not good at commanding the army, and it was all the Dark Elf Mist Soul's credit. Thank you for your recommendation. Yun Shi looked at the Dark Elf Mist Soul with a sheepish look. The Dark Elf was standing in the front row of all Mist Souls. Because she wouldn't die, she didn't need to be protected by the army. Instead, she led the charge as a vanguard. Yun Shi could see that she was familiar with battle. Under her leadership, the Mist Soul army was about 2 times stronger than when he commanded the army. Before she used her hero-ranked ability, the Mist Soul army had wiped out all the giant slimes quickly. Yun Qiu's recommendation was remarkable. The dark elf named Black Moon was born to be a war leader. However, when Yun Shi looked at the dark elf, he could feel her loneliness. Nothing praiseworthy, because great command capability can be learned through practice. There are many excellent commanders in the universe, however, your Mist Soul army is unique. Looking at her own projection, the lonely dark elf in the Mist Soul army, Yun Qiu smiled bitterly. As an assassin, why did she have such a great command capability? The reason was cruel. For her mission, for her justice, she had stepped onto countless battlefields and had stained her hands with blood a long time ago. Her justice wasn't without a price. For victory, she had made cruel choices many times and had given up many people who believed in her. Everything was for victory, because only the victor could obtain the future. Let's keep moving. I have a feeling that this battle will be very cruel. Before they stepped on the island, they had encountered so many giant slimes. This fact made Yun Qiu have a very bad feeling in her heart. Shea Longness, the Sky Sword's erosion of this world was faster and deeper than her imagination. The information she had collected in the Celian city was probably just a small portion of the Sky Sword's actual power. I have the same feeling. Many smells in the mist don't belong to this world. Yun Shi sniffed, feeling a vague tingling sensation through his White Emperor mask. Bang! 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 Quickly, their bad feelings came true. With a spate of explosive sounds, something happened. One slime after another gushed out of the ground and the water, flocking to Yun Shi and Yun Qiu. Poison slime, marsh slime, ice slime, metal slime, lava slime, rock slime, giant slime, silver slime. Yun Qiu had mentioned that there would be all kinds of slimes appearing in the second phase of the Sky Sword's coming. Now, they all appeared and rushed to them from the mist. There was a special network amongst all the slimes. When the giant slimes were killed off, the slimes in the mist immediately knew it and made their response. Let's continue our fight. Yun Qiu drew her black longbow with blood mark in her eyes. Open up, the door of Mist Souls. Yun Shi summoned the mist door again. Instantly, one row of Mist Souls after another walked out of the door and onto the battlefield. In the deepest side of the island of mist, the Dark Shadow Spider Queen was sitting on her Dark Shadow throne. Her naked toes lightly touched the big net in front of her. Most of the area on the island had been covered in this big net, becoming the Dark Shadow Spider Queen's territory. This was the Queen's favorite tactic, capturing her prey in the net, then let them choke to death in despair. 74%, with the power from the Sky Sword, this net was 100 times bigger than all the nets she could weave before. 75%, countless slimes were invading into the largest forbidden area in this world, the Island of Mist. The progress meant that they had occupied 3/4 of the space on this island, which also stood for the progress of the Sky Sword's coming. What Yun Shi and Yun Qiu had known was far away from the truth. Even before they entered the Celian city, the first Golden Slime King had been born. Soon after, the second, the third. Every Golden Slime King was like a node. They built a coordinate system, guiding the Sky Sword's avatar the way to this world. This world was covered with the water god's power. As a sky sword, Shea Longness was one of the strongest beings in the sky sword god's domain. Even so, it wasn't easy for her to descend into this world. She must be guided by suitable nodes and the coordinate system, so that she would be able to squeeze into this world through a sufficiently large spatial channel. Now, Shea Longness, the sky sword's coming had started the countdown. As a void creature, the Dark Shadow Spider Queen could naturally find the weakest spatial point of any world. The Island of Mist was the best landing place she chose for the sky sword. P.S. Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. https://www.amazon.com DP-B07D6D D5H5, from C1 to C62, https://www.amazon.com DP-B07DYD59Q6, from C63 to C144. Chapter 249. Hua Huo arrives at the battlefield. This was the weakest spatial point in the water god's world, and was also the source of the mist tide that people feared. The monsters from the mist tide were living on this island. They moved along the mist tide and hunted the creatures who were carelessly involved into the mist. When the mist tide faded away, they would return to the island of mist themselves. The people in this world didn't understand the principle behind it, neither the Dark Shadow Spider Queen, but she didn't mind it. She only took this place as the Sky Sword's landing place and the nest of her phase spiders. After the first Golden Slime Queen was born, she ordered all special slimes to go to this island once they were born. As a result, slimes had almost occupied half of the space on the island. The people who hadn't seen Shea Longness, the Sky Sword, could never imagine how strong her true power was. This world's moving disaster, the brutal monsters in the mist tide, had almost all been killed off by these slimes. Those special monsters who had once driven the young boys up the wall had all become the slime's food. Apart from the central area, where the strongest bone dragon inhabited, the Island of Mist had become the base camp of the Sky Sword. When Yun Shi and Yun Q went to this place, it was like two sheep went into a tiger's mouth. In the wilds, on the Island of Mist, a cruel battle had entered its hottest stage. Boom! Boom! One red lotus arrow after another exploded amongst the slimes, clearing a wide area in the range of dozens of meters. But soon, more and more slimes had gushed out from the mist and filled the vacancy again. These slimes could be regarded as the Slime Army's hero units. They were not harmless low-grade monsters anymore. Instead, they all had special abilities. Poison slime could spit venom. Ice slime was protected by a halo of ice. Giant slime bodies were already a heavy weapon. Lava slime body temperature was so high that it could even melt the ground, not to mention that they could detonate themselves. If they weren't facing the Mist Soul Army, but any other army, these slimes would already have won this battle. In a way, the Mist Soul Army was the only force in this world that could defeat the Slime Army. No matter how many slimes they would face, these Mist Souls would strike back with no mercy. No flame, ice blast, and explosion could do harm to them, so they could fight their way through the slime crowd easily. The slimes all dropped cores on the ground after they were killed by the Mist Souls. Yun Shi controlled the mist to take the cores back and let the green slime bracelet on his arm absorb them. This was already the third area of the Island of Mist. On the first two areas, Yun Shi and Yun Q had killed over 100,000 slimes and cleared out dozens of slime nests. However, this was just the beginning. As if they just opened a box that should never be opened, more and more slimes rushed to them from the mist with no signs of stopping. If it wasn't Yun Shi's Mist Soul Army, but the three high priestesses, they would have been overwhelmed by the endless slimes by now. I didn't expect that it'd be so tiring. Yun Q, breathing hard, put down the bow and adjusted her breath. Her hands were limp and painful at this moment. She needed to take a rest. How many slimes have Yun Hai and I killed? Probably the number is already over 500,000. If converted their weight to humans' body weight, the number should be over 1 million. However, even after killing so many slimes, there are still more and more slimes gushing out of the mist. How many slimes are in the mist? How can it be possible? They shouldn't have obtained sufficient nutrients to proliferate. You don't need to push yourself. Compared to Yun-Q, Yun-Shi was more leisurely. No. Letting down of my guard will mean that I'm close to death. Yun-Q shook her head. We are on the battlefield. Anything is possible and can happen on the battlefield. Maybe a strong monster will come and reverse the war situation. Before Yun-Q finished her words, she suddenly noticed that Yun-Shi's body shook, with an emotion called fear in his eyes. You are right. She is coming. Yun-Shi's voice sounded nervous. For the first time, he looked really worried in front of Yun-Q. She? Who is she? Yun-Q's instinct was as strong as Yun-Shi's. She hadn't noticed that the monster was approaching. I knew I would see her sooner or later, but, oh, as expected, she is in the Sky Swords camp. Yun-Shi took a deep breath, gazing at the sky. It's her. After a little while, Yun-Q also noticed the small black point in the sky. Her pupils contracted. She would never forget this figure. She was defeated by this girl's sword, so she had to experience that nightmare again. Stepping on one translucent halo after another in the air, one of the strongest trump cards, Yun-Shi's childhood sweetheart, was rushing to them from the sky. A strand of hair was rotating on her head, as if it was a small detecting device that was being disturbed. With a violent rage, Yun-Shi's first love, Hua Huo, was rushing to them from the Sky Swords camp. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 250. I will protect you. Yun-Shi didn't know what his childhood sweetheart had encountered in this world, however, he knew that Hua Huo's fighting will was as bright and burning as the sun. When Hua Huo killed the male fiery dragon and fought against the twin witches, her power had shocked Yun-Shi. At this moment, Hua Huo's aura was even more terrible compared to that time. The translucent halos under her feet looked as if she had even trampled out cracks in the air. Her every step shook the sky heavily. It was a power that Yun-Shi hadn't touched, the true power of the sky flying sword. Are you scared? For the first time, Yun-Hai looked so uneasy in front of Yun-Q. Yes. She is dangerous. Yun-Shi softly touched the green slime bracelet on his arm. He wasn't afraid of Hua Huo's power. In fact, after obtaining the power of 1,000,000 brides, Yun-Shi's power was definitely stronger than Hua Huo's power. However, he couldn't do anything to her. He couldn't hurt her. She was his first love, the most wonderful and purest memory in his heart. For a long time, Yun-Shi thought that he would only love Hua Huo during his life. Even if he couldn't stay beside her forever, because she would undoubtedly become brighter and brighter, he wouldn't forget his love for Hua Huo. The time he spent together with Hua Huo was always happy and simple, and Yun-Shi often inadvertently forgot about the great gap between them. In the past, he had once imagined a day where he would marry Hua Huo, holding her hand at the wedding. Yun-Shi thought that Hua Huo also liked him. No, not like him as her lover, but liked him as her playmate. However, he believed that if he had enough time, he had confidence that she would fall in love with him. Unfortunately, Hua Huo wouldn't stay in that small town or even in the Sky Sword God's domain. Her talent was beyond what normal mortals could understand. No one would consider her as a common girl. She was like the bright queen of summer and the golden sun in the sky. In the meanwhile, Yun-Shi was like a common cloud in the air. The cloud could be beside the sun, but as the sun kept rising, they would eventually become separated from each other. Because Yun-Shi had understood this fact a long time ago, he could make his decision early. I love Hua Huo. I like the way she appears when she is running and brandishing her sword. I like her spirit of never regret and never retreat. In his eyes, she was the best lover in all the universe. However, he was just a common baker. He didn't deserve such a fantastic lover. The sun and the cloud can't stay together. The time that belonged to the two of them would be very short. Yun-Shi loved Hua Huo very much, so he knew when he should give up and leave her. As a mortal, he would become old, ill and eventually die. They wouldn't have a future. To me, she is the last enemy that I can defeat. Yun-Shi sighed with a distressed look. Originally, they should have fought shoulder to shoulder in this world. The stars gave him a quest called The Girl Fights Against the Evil Dragon, which meant that he should have the chance to cooperate with her in this world. I understand. She is indeed a tough enemy for you. Yun-Q thought that she knew what Yun-Hai was thinking. She had experienced Hua Huo's strong power personally. To Yun Hai, who wasn't good at close combat, she was indeed tough. The Mist Soul Army was the strongest army Yun Q had ever known, but it also had a weak point, Yun Shi, who wasn't used to controlling his new power. This wasn't an uncorrectable point, but to fix it, he needed time. Once Yun Shi learned how to control his Mist Soul Army, it wouldn't be a weak point, but would become his strongest point. Having an army whose soldiers had no fear, wouldn't die and were always faithful, it was a miracle that Yun Q had never imagined. She wouldn't let this miracle disappear. "Don't worry, I will protect you. You won't die." Looking at the strong enemy coming from the sky, Yun Q said in a firm tone. In order to save this world, she must save Yun Hai first, saving this man who could bring hope for this world. She had made many choices for victory, and her choice now was to protect the Emperor of the Mist Soul Army at all cost. Her Mist Soul in the Mist Soul Army was just an avatar. Compared to her avatar, her real power was much stronger. She had the only thing the White Emperor mask couldn't copy for her Mist Soul, because it was another water god's mask. Archer of Battlefield. Blood started to accelerate inside her body. Her mask was becoming more and more red, with bloody lines spread on it. "Listen, watch my battle carefully. Maybe you still don't understand it, but the battle between strong people isn't as simple as you think." She could hear the thunderous sound from the sky. It was the sound made by Hua Huo's aura field. Hua Huo wasn't at the hero rank, but her power could make any hero ranked being feel frightened. Because now in this manner, she was announcing her coming. Why? Hua Huo ground her teeth. Anger, anger, anger. She didn't know the reason why, but she felt very angry. In front of her, there were two strangers. She didn't feel any familiarity from their appearances and auras, however, when she found that the two people were standing together, she felt very irritated. "Little Shi, where are you?" P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Married. Chapter 251, Landing. After arriving in this world, Hua Huo always felt that something was wrong. When they had just landed, Red Lotus, White Lotus and Hua Huo had encountered the undead bone dragon, who was probably the most terrible monster in this world, and they had to fight against this annoying bone dragon. Finally, they got rid of the dragon and started to look for Yun Shi, but they could find no clue. They had found all the other Sword Palace disciples and still didn't know where Yun Shi was. Not only that, after coming to this world, her detection radar for rivals in love kept warning her. It was an instinct learned from a protracted struggle in her past life and had never made a false alarm. Due to this, she could find the girls who wickedly tried to take away her little Shi. However, isn't the warning too frequent these days? From ringing several times in a day to ringing dozens of times in a day, till now it kept warning her non-stop. It seemed as if her detection radar had broken. Just like when she looked at the girls formed by mist, they all showed as red points on her detection radar, which meant that they were all her rivals in love. Are you kidding me? It's an army. There are over 100,000 girls. In fact, 10 times more than that. Even if my little Shi became this world's emperor and had a big harem, he wouldn't have so many imperial concubines. Apart from this, when she looked at the two masked men in front of her, she felt distressed from the bottom of her heart. Why? Is it because the man on the left looks a bit like her little Shi? No, he can't be my little Shi. That man looks much older than Yun Shi, and my little Shi wouldn't be so leisurely if he was surrounded by a group of beautiful girls. She could notice that these mist girls often looked at this man with a soft look. Even when they were fighting, they still often stole a glance at him, but this man didn't notice this at all. Who is this dandy? What's his relationship with these strange mist girls? They are not some creations simply made by magics. They all have their special characters. After realizing this, Hua Huo bellowed out to this miracle. In her heart, perhaps only the power of God could produce such an army. No wonder that Shea Longness, the Sky Sword, cared for the water god so very much. The water god can't be simple, perhaps it is much older and more mysterious than any of my guesses. However, it had nothing to do with Hua Huo. Hua Huo only cared about the red-masked man who was standing beside the silver-masked man. It's strange. Hua Huo thought that she had never seen this red-masked man before, but when she looked at him, she felt hostility toward him. No, it's not just hostility. It's anger. It's an unexpected rage that is even beyond her understanding. On Hua Huo's detection radar, this man's red point was bigger than any of the mist girls. This man's sense of existence was so strong that it even made Hua Huo's eyes twitch. Enemy, 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 danger, danger, danger. Hua Huo could feel the uneasiness in her heart. It was a warning from her bloodline. She probably had met the most terrible rival in her life. No, I can't take it any longer, let me beat him down first. Although there was no reason to explain her hostility, Hua Huo still decided to believe her instinct. If I can't figure it out, let me beat him down first, then think about it again. Hua Huo's heavy sword chirred, emitting a sound that could shake the heaven and the earth. Instantly, Hua Huo had locked onto Yun Qiu. For a moment, they gazed at each other. You're my enemy. Hua Huo exclaimed her feelings with no disguise. I will protect him. For this world, even though Yun Qiu still thought that Yun Hai was a scumbag, she wouldn't hesitate to protect him. Take this. Hua Huo held the heavy sword tightly. The heavy sword suddenly became blurred in her hands. Forestall. Yun Qiu drew the black longbow. This artifact named Black Moon immediately emitted a frightening aura. Compared to the time when she tried to assassinate Hua Huo, she had become much stronger, and her arrows was much more powerful and fatal. 16 bloodlights of arrow formed from her fingers whence he drew the black longbow fully. The bowstring quivered, emitting an aura that wasn't inferior to Hua Huo's sword at all. In the Mist Soul army, Yun Qiu's dark elf Mist Soul suddenly raised her head and looked at Hua Huo. She suddenly disappeared in the air. For victory, I can become unscrupulous. From the beginning, she wasn't planning to have a one-on-one fight. After all, she wasn't a saber but an archer. 16 burning spiral arrows shot to Hua Huo from all directions. Even if you were the sun, I will shoot you down from the sky. Even if you were a star, I will break you up with my sword. Two girls, two different wills, but their minds were both unshakable. Yun Shi sighed after realizing this. How excellent are these two people. Even though their characters are different, they are similar in some sense. Boom, boom, boom. 16 explosions echoed between the sky and the earth. The fierce blast wave even caused a huge mushroom cloud in the air. The shock waves even spread to the sea, where was 10 kilometers away. It was an impact between two hero-ranked powers. It was a symphony of two strong souls. Curse you. Hua Huo heavily dropped from the sky to the battlefield like a meteorite, embracing her sky-flying bloodline's absolute power. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 252, The Crimson Hound. The earth was shaking. Countless cracks spread around from Hua Huo's landing place like spiderwebs, and the strong shock wave killed over 10,000 mist souls at once. Of course, the mist souls were deathless as long as Yun Shi was still wearing the White Emperor mask. No matter how powerful the shockwave was, it would be meaningless eventually. It's neither painful nor disturbing to lose 10,000 mist souls. Soon after, these mist souls had returned to the battlefield from the mist door behind Yun Shi. Hua Huo frowned as she looked at these suspect rivals in love. She had noticed that these mist girls wouldn't die when she was in the sky, however, she still thought that it was a foul to return from the mist door as if nothing had happened. The undead army had over 100,000 mist girls. It could even straightly destroy a kingdom as easy as blowing off dust. It seemed that the water god's camp had also sent their strong combat power, the so-called apostles. It doesn't matter. She was never afraid of battle. No matter who her enemy was, her sky-flying bloodline wouldn't lose. Even if there was an army of 100,000 people or even 200,000 people, she only needed to beat down their leader. Without their emperor, the army would be just a puddle of water. I can take any enemy's head from the protection of an army. Any hero ranked being had the confidence to announce this. However, The hero rank didn't mean infinite physical strength and combat capability. Theoretically, a hero-ranked person was possible to be killed by a strong mortal army. However, it was just a theory. No mortal army could trap any hero-ranked beings. The hero-ranked being didn't need to fight recklessly with the army. As long as the hero-ranked being decapitated the army's commander, the army wouldn't be a threat any longer. Hua Huo knew what she should do exactly. Yun Qiu also knew what she should do at this moment. Only a hero-ranked being could defeat another hero-ranked being. Hua Huo breathed. It was a breathing method she had never seen. Like a dragon was breathing, a circle of terrible aura surrounded Hua Huo's body. Compared to her, the hero-ranked male fiery dragon's dragon aura was nothing. Suddenly, the ground under Hua Huo's feet exploded. Holding the heavy sword in her hands, Hua Huo used the skill called Sky Flying Sword. She stepped forward with a circle of translucent halo after another circle spread around under her feet. Compared to her attack from the sky, Hua Huo was more unstoppable on the ground. With crushing force, her every step increased the frightening force of the translucent halos. Most mist souls immediately evaporated when they touched the halos. Only a very few strong mist souls still stood in front of Hua Huo and tried to stop her. They had no fear in their eyes, not to mention no thought of stepping back. Even if they could only slightly slow down Hua Huo's speed, they wouldn't hesitate to achieve it even with their real flesh and blood. She looked at the redoubtable figure, realizing his childhood sweetheart's strong power again. She wasn't the Hua Huo that he knew when she was in the small town. At this moment, she was an invincible swordsman. If he hadn't obtained the power from the stars, he probably would never see his childhood sweetheart's other face. Even though he had obtained the stars' power, he still hadn't caught up with his childhood sweetheart's pace. Even though he was wearing the White Emperor mask, its power couldn't be a match for Hua Huo's bloodline power. At this moment, Hua Huo looks so beautiful. How dare you? In the face of Hua Huo's assault, Yun Qiu decided to bring in the whole Mist Soul army to stop her. At the same time, her left foot pressed forward and her right foot firmly nailed to the ground. She drew open the black longbow like a full moon. A bloody arrow suddenly appeared on the bowstring with a frightening aura. Compared to the gorgeous red lotus arrows and the spiral arrows, this arrow didn't pursue to be accurate, but was much more powerful. Boom! The sound of the bowstrings shaking echoed in the sky above the Mist Soul army. It was a limit arrow with all Yun Qiu's energy. After shooting this arrow, she had no strength to protect herself. Ding! Hua Huo brandished her heavy sword, a fierce hound-like light exploded on the sword blade. It was Yun Qiu's arrow, the arrow of bloodthirsty demon Hound. Although Yun Qiu wasn't beloved by this world, she had also obtained the water god's mask. With it, she had developed her own way of activating her bloodline power. She wasn't the emperor that was beloved by the god, and she didn't want to be the princess. She put on her own crown of blood and sin. The bloody arrow of bloodthirsty demon Hound was the materialization of her strong will. Once she shot the arrow, it would keep hunting its enemy till either it killed its target, or was smashed to pieces. The roaring crimson demon Hound was her weapon she used to snipe her enemy. I can kill anything, even if that thing is God. Go ahead, my arrow of bloodthirsty demon Hound. As the demon Hound roared, the two girls who had different fates started their earth-shaking duel again. Chapter 253. Continuous attacks. Hua Huo broke the first, the second, the third arrow of bloodthirsty demon Hound like breaking some dead branches from a tree. These arrows could even destroy a mountain, but caused no harm to Hua Huo. However, Hua Huo's speed was indeed being slowed down, which made She look at Yun Qiu in a new light. Yun Qiu could stop Hua Huo's assault with such fierce attacks. He was definitely the strongest archer She had ever seen. I'm not the only person who has learned something from this trial. She thought in his heart. Suddenly, the dark elf Mist Soul, who disappeared on the battlefield before, turned into a dark shadow and appeared behind Hua Huo. Her black sword pointed at Hua Huo's back. She hadn't seen how she had moved so stealthily behind Hua Huo. Obviously, she could eliminate her existence from Hua Huo's senses, which should be a special ability from her dark elf bloodline. Finally, Hua Huo was forced to stop. The two hero-ranked enemies' attacks were so tacit, which even surprised Hua Huo. After she broke the fourth arrow of bloodthirsty demon Hound, her body stiffened for less than 1/10 of a second. Seizing this perfect opportunity, the assassin behind her launched her attack. Hua Huo raised the heavy sword and smashed it into the ground. A silver sphere appeared and wrapped around Hua Huo's body, then exploded in the air. Countless lights gushed out and spread around Hua Huo, forcing the dark elf to step back and blew her into the sky. Power. It is the most direct, purest violent power. Maybe it was because no one could force Hua Huo to use her true power in the past, or that she could naturally master any weapon. At this moment, Hua Huo looked so different compared to her memories in Yunxi's heart. When she used the long sword, she was a nimble female swordsman. When she used the heavy sword, she was an invincible god of war. However, no matter which side she showed, she was still the Hua Huo Yunxi loved. The more time he stayed beside Hua Huo, the more charms he could see in her. If possible, he could look at her all day. Suddenly, after being blown up into the sky, the dark elf's body divided in the air. 1 dark shadow, 2, 3 dark shadows. 3 avatars appeared. The dark elf chose sword. Compared to Yun Qiu, who was good at archery, her tactic was totally different. She would pay anything for victory. This was Yun Qiu's belief, and the root of all her tactics. Therefore, she needed to learn all kinds of tactics, so that she could adapt herself to all battlefield environments. Archer was her main career. Assassination, reconnaissance, and independent action were the best tactical formation for her. However, she was also good at sword. An archer who doesn't know close combat isn't a good archer. Because she could adapt herself to all complex situations, she could announce that she was a perfect archer. When she used the bow, she was a super sniper who could launch an attack from over the horizon. When she used the sword, she was a dark elf shadow dancer who could use her dark elf bloodline and her dark elf swordplay smartly. At the first, she couldn't use her two abilities together, which meant that once she used the bow, she couldn't use the sword at the same time, and vice versa. However, Yunxi's Mist Soul Army helped her perfectly solve this problem in an inconceivable manner. Her dark elf Mist Soul inherited her swordplay technique. Maybe it had something to do with her condition when she signed the contract with Yunxi. When she fought together with her Mist Soul, she could feel the perfect tacit understanding between them. As the commander of the Mist Soul Army, the dark elf could understand all her intentions, and found suitable opportunities to support her. She didn't decide to stop Hua Huo with her continuous attacks suddenly, but had made this tactic from the beginning when Hua Huo was still in the sky. Yun Qiu didn't believe in instinct and luck. She believed that all things in this world needed to follow some certain rules. As long as she could find and understand the rules, she would be able to defeat all enemies. She preferred to rely on her thoroughly tempered combat capability rather than to trust on her combat instinct, and this was how her two special abilities built. Special Ability 1, Eagle's Eye, which was also called Clairvoyance, she could lock on her enemy from 4 kilometers away with her longbow. Special Ability 2, Mind's Eye, a kind of insight she learned from strenuous practice. With it, she could analyze the battlefield situation calmly among disadvantages, and found all advantages for victory. As a phantom archer, she learned many special abilities based on the two core abilities, such as independent action, master sniper, spiral arrow, double arrow, tracing arrow, and red lotus arrow. As a dark elf, her dark elf bloodline conferred her a lot of innate abilities such as shadow stealth, multiple avatars, and air interdiction. She would never rely her fate on luck, which was impossible to calculate. Only a perfect calculation and plan could bring her victory. If she found that she couldn't win a battle, she would retreat and wait for her enemy's negligence. Unfortunately, she couldn't retreat on this battlefield. They had only one choice after stepping on the Island of Mist. As the Water God's apostles, she and he had obtained the whole world's support. They must win. They must defeat all enemies before Shea Longness, the Sky Sword, actually descends into this world. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 254, The Sword is Broken, I Must Win. Only the people who live in peace would say, "I want to enjoy the battle and don't mind the end result." On a real battlefield, victory could only be bought by unscrupulous tactics and a great amount of sacrifice. It wasn't surprising to know that a battle's result could be determined by an insignificant detail. Therefore, the less mistakes she made, the more likely she would be able to win the battle. No pain, no gain. It was an immortal rule for both the mortal and hero-ranked beings. With this belief in her heart, so that she was able to get to this point, Yun Qiu's hands were already stained with blood. She could snipe her enemies from kilometers away, and could also assassinate her target in the shadows. If necessary, she could also pretend to be an ordinary person to take action. Everything was for victory. 7 shadow avatars surrounded Hua Huo, and they all had the same aura like Yun Qiu's. It wasn't her mist soul's property, but an instinctive ability from her dark elf bloodline. All dark elves could control the dark shadow power naturally. Yun Qiu's special innate ability was to divide several avatars of herself and switch her true body amongst her avatars. Her avatars were bogus, but also real. The boundary between reality and counterfeit was blurred at this point. She had mastered it a long time ago, but only after she reached the hero rank, she could actually use this innate ability properly. Gah! In Yun Qiu's hand, the longbow's bowstring quivered. She just shot the 5th arrow. Wind speed, moving path, and all the things on the battlefield had turned into data streams, flowing into Yun Qiu's eyes. She had performed her mind's eye to the limit. She didn't rely on her instinct but followed her hard calculations, forcing Hua Huo to enter her trap. It wasn't assassination. It was an undisguised assault. She used her complex calculations and her eagle's eye to observe the situation, then used her mind's eye to find out her enemy's weak point. This was her core strategy, which was based on her 3 abilities. In order to support the great amount of calculations, she had almost overloaded her brain. A drop of blood dripped down from the corner of her eyes, which represented that she had used the power in her water god's mask to the limit. Bang! It didn't sound like an arrow but sounded like a cannonball exploding. Yun Qiu shot her strongest arrow. Hum! Hua Huo raised the heavy sword to block this attack. With a deafening sound, she was forced to take a step back. Pang! With another loud sound, Hua Huo took 2 steps back. The heavy sword emitted a plaintive whine in her hands. It was due to the qualitative gap between their weapons. Yun Qiu knew that her strength and explosive force were inferior to Hua Huo's, then her best advantage was her weapons. Hua Huo's weapon wasn't a god weapon nor even a spirit weapon. It was just a hard 2-handed heavy sword. Yun Qiu had the water god's mask, which was undoubtedly a god weapon, and her Black Moon sword and Black Moon bow were all artifacts. Therefore, her weapons were far better than Hua Huo's. If Hua Huo's heavy sword was an artifact, Yun Qiu wouldn't fight so recklessly with her. She would order the whole Mist Soul army to stop Hua Huo and retreat together with Yun Shi. Of course, if it really happened, it wouldn't be escape, it would just be a strategic shift. After all, the way to win battle was to exert advantages and dig out the opponent's disadvantages. Since Yun Qiu had known that her weapons were better, then she would naturally exert all she had for this advantage. Her Black Moon bow and her Dark Elf Mist Soul's Black Moon sword were the 2 weights that could change the balance of power on the battlefield. Shuffle. When Hua Huo took the 3rd step back, her balance was slightly shaken. Seizing this opportunity, the 7 dark shadow avatars moved. They attacked Hua Huo from 7 different directions. After blocking Yun Qiu's arrow of bloodthirsty demon Hound several times, there were already several noticeable cracks appearing on Hua Huo's heavy sword. Although it was a fully refined weapon, the heavy sword was still a mortal-ranked weapon. With its huge size and weight, Hua Huo could defeat common hero-ranked enemies, but it finally exposed its fatal defect under Yun Qiu's attacks. Ding! 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 Within a second, the Dark Elf's Black Moon sword had cut on the heavy sword over 100 times as its attacks were all focusing on the cracks on the sword blade. Yun Qiu's tactic was so relentless and ruthless. Once she found her enemy's weak point, she would attack that weak point with all her strength. Finally, in the Dark Elf's 3rd round of attack, Hua Huo's sword was broken. The heavy sword blade was divided into 2 pieces. The huge sword tip dropped to the ground with a heavy thud. Gee! Yunxi looked at Yun Q in surprise. For the first time, he saw that Hua Huo was backed into such a disadvantageous corner. When Yun Q saw the heavy sword breaking, even though she was always calm, she still couldn't help but show a proud smile on her face. The turning point of the battle had appeared. Not bad. There were flames burning inside Hua Huo's eyes. Even the bone dragon didn't achieve such an achievement. She was fired up. She had to admit that when it referred to control power and degree of accuracy, the brainless bone dragon was far inferior to this archer in red. Till now, the strongest archer she had met was the mysterious assassin in the Sword Palace entrance exam. However, this archer in red was far stronger and more aggressive. Do you think you have won? I will let you realize your mistake, because what is broken can be reforged. Reforge, my sword. Hua Huo held the broken sword and put her finger on the sword blade. Instantly, her blood flowed out from the wound on her finger and spread along the broken blade. After staining with Hua Huo's blood, a fantastic change was happening to the sword. Originally, it was just a heavy, thick mortal weapon, but now, it was transforming in a frightening direction. 1, 2, 3. 3 bloodstains appeared on the broken blade. Bloody sharp edges spread out of the broken blade, making the broken sword look more mysterious and terrifying. What? Holding the Black Moon bow, Yun Q's hand was shaking. What is happening? What has she done to the broken sword? Chapter 255, Reforge the Sword Shuffle. Hua Huo's small hand touched the sword blade. Without any spell or charm, the broken sword emitted bright lights. Not long ago, it was still a mortal weapon, but now, it had become an artifact after absorbing Hua Huo's blood. The bloody lines on the sword not only repaired the cracks but also conferred the sword a brand new shape, making it regain a new life. Bloody lights spread along the broken sword and formed a transparent sword blade along the cracks, offering the battle-scarred sword a broken beauty. Yun Q looked at the broken sword through her water god's mask. In her eyes, the bloody lights on the broken sword blade were so strong that they could even ignite the whole world. A new secret skill. As expected, she is strong. She had once learned Hua Huo's bloodline secret skills from her seed. Therefore, he was surprised, but he wasn't as dumbfounded as Yun Q. My childhood sweetheart really has a lot of secret. Don't be ridiculous. You don't understand what this secret skill means. Yun Q gave a contemptuous glance at Yun Shi. Can it only be described as strong? It's like she is cheating. It's a secret skill that can make a mortal weapon become an artifact. How can this be possible? Even if she is a super strong hero-ranked female swordsman, it should be impossible for her to do this. It should be a legend-ranked secret skill. How can she be able to use this? The girl named Hua Huo could make a mortal weapon become an artifact with her blood. Just how strong is her bloodline? At the least, it was beyond Yun Q's insight. Was she the person the Ten Leaves Alliance arranged to have assassinated? What a bad joke. The more amazing fact was that Hua Huo hadn't reached the hero rank yet. Even if a mortal offered his life as a sacrifice, it wasn't possible for a mortal to reinforce his weapon to this degree. What a frightening secret skill. The birth of any artifact would require tens of thousands of strong beings' blood. For example, if taking the green hippo as a standard, 10,000 green hippos' blood would only sharpen a common artifact. No matter where you were, if you wanted to forge an artifact, then you needed to wait for the perfect moment, geographical convenience, and pray for good luck. Not all hero-ranked beings could have an artifact. Yun Q's Black Moon bow and Black Moon sword were born from her sins and persistence. After crossing countless battlefields and being stained with endless blood, she finally caught the slight opportunity and obtained her own artifacts. Compared to her effort, Hua Huo could easily obtain an artifact by dripping her blood on the broken sword. It was like cheating. She can't be human. Yun Q's water god's mask detected nearly infinite energy inside of Hua Huo's blood. When Hua Huo put her blood on the broken sword, the sword could only absorb a small part of the energy in her blood, and most energy returned into her body naturally. Compared to Hua Huo's bloodline, Yun Q felt like her dark elf bloodline was totally worthless. Don't disappoint me, because I'm already fired up. To Hua Huo, this was the first time she used this secret skill. Her tone sounded excited. When she had been in the small town, no one could force her to use this secret skill. Even the undead bone dragon on the island of Mist wasn't strong enough to let her use it, because it was too brainless. This archer in red was the strongest enemy Hua Huo had ever met after leaving the small town. Just now, Hua Huo's every move and plan of attack had all been predicted by the archer in red, which was undoubtedly a rare experience for her. Therefore, Hua Huo thought that it was time to show off what she had learned. My sky-flying bloodline doesn't have any weak points. Even though I have only a broken sword in my hand, I can make it an artifact. Of course, the effect of her blood was temporary. The energy from her blood would fade away and the sword would break again at a later time. However, Hua Huo had the confidence to defeat the enemies before that happened. Shuffle. Yun Qiu raised her eyebrows, but wasn't being provoked. Compared to Hua Huo, who enjoyed a peaceful life in the small town when she was young, Yun Qiu's childhood was much poorer and bloodier. Her experience in the past had taught her that calm was the only path that could lead her to victory. Fear and anxiety would interfere with her choice. At that moment, she imaged that her body was the purest and most perfect weapon. Steel is my body, and fire is my blood. I have gone through over 1,000 battlefields, and have never been defeated. I will abandon all emotions and put all my heart into the battle. Calculate the enemy's information again, the advantages and disadvantages, the environment of the battlefield, the things I can use. My win rate isn't 0. I still have an advantage over her, because I'm not fighting alone. This is a battlefield, not an arena, and I'm not taking part in a duel of one-on-one. On the battlefield, only the person who is still alive can become the winner. Change of tactic. Yun Hai, let's fight together, Yun Qiu said as she drew her black longbow again. Oh, I see. Yun Shi took a deep breath. He had never thought that he would fight against Hua Huo one day. However, that is how life goes on. What are you whispering about? Hua Huo was in a bad mood. She didn't know why she felt irritable when she saw the two people whispering shoulder to shoulder. A strand of hair raised on her head and pointed at the two people's direction, as if it was warning its master that something bad was happening. Compared to Yun Qiu, Hua Huo's battle plan was much simpler and cruder. I will crush all enemies in front of me. I don't care about their races or identities, because my sky-flying bloodline can defeat anyone in front of me. She had never doubted her power, because she was really strong. She didn't enter the hero rank because she had undone a restriction in her body. Her true fighting capability wasn't something that could be explained with common sense. The stronger her enemy was, the stronger she would become. Her fighting capability could be enhanced faster than anybody's imagination when she was in a fight. Chapter 256, The White Emperor's Power Compared to Yun Qiu. Yun Shi really knew how strong his childhood sweetheart was. Even though he had obtained Hua Huo's seed, he had never seen Hua Huo in such high spirits. Her heavy sword had broken, but after reforging it, its aura had become much more frightening. It looked as if she had been fired up. The flames of her soul were so bright, even her breath was so hot it was burning. Even though Hua Huo was still a few kilometers away from them, Yun Shi and Yun Qiu could still feel their bodies break out with gooseflesh. This was how strong Yun Shi's childhood sweetheart, Hua Huo, was. Yun Shi took a deep breath. Naturally, he wouldn't use sword skills like the flying swallow sword in front of Hua Huo, which would undoubtedly expose his true identity. Similarly, he couldn't use any of the weapons he had used in front of Hua Huo, neither the Crane Wing's twin swords nor the Killing Princess's demon sword. However, if he couldn't use his sword, how could he fight against Hua Huo? The answer was obvious. He could only use the power he obtained in this world, the power from 1,000,000 brides, the strong fake power of the Emperor. Why had he come to this world? Why did he have to fight against his first love? For saving this world. For the girls who believed in him and were willing to become a part of his brides. The girls of the Starwing Knights, the 3 water gods' high priestesses, the 1,000,000 girls who came to the Celian city and responded to his irrational request, they all trusted him and lent their power to him, making him the real White Emperor. While he was here, he gradually came to like this world and the local residents. He wasn't just following the water god's quests, but actually wanted to do something to help this world. The tenderness this world had offered him had changed him. Like what the 3 high priestesses had said, I'm responsible for this world. Therefore, I must bring hope to them. Since I'm the last hope to save this world, then I will change this world's fate with my own hands. Since this world is longing for reform, then I will bring new changes for them. Countless mist gathered together behind Yun-Shi from all directions, forming a giant mist door. One ice blade after another emerged from the mist door. They were the mist souls who responded to Yun-Shi's will and transformed into weapons. It was Yun-Shi's unique mist soul armory. Fire, ice blades. If Yun-Q's attack was a precise, deadly blow, then Yun-Shi's attack was a long-range bombardment. Only with the support from the 1 million brides, Yun-Shi could make such a splendid attack. He admitted that his control over his power was inferior to Yun-Q's, however, with the Mist Soul's help, the amount of his attack could be thousands of times stronger than Yun-Q's. Tens of thousands of cold ice blades shot at Hua Huo from Yun-Shi's back like a storm. I can't lock on the target. It doesn't matter, because I can offset this weak point with attack range and frequency. If anyone wanted to defeat Yun-Shi, it would also mean having to defeat his 1 million brides at the same time. What? Even Hua Huo hadn't seen such a reckless, exaggerated attack. At first glance, they were just some newbies' imprudent attacks because the speed and direction of all the ice blades weren't very perfect. However, there were tens of thousands of ice blades, which made his weaknesses not a weakness any longer. The overwhelming number had offset all weaknesses, which was really surprising to know that they were made by a human. Hua Huo couldn't imagine any hero-ranked being that could have such a great amount of power like Yun-Shi. If a mortal's power was like a stream and a hero-ranked person's power was like a river, then the amount of Yun-Shi's power was like an ocean, was totally beyond the limit of the hero rank. This was Yun-Shi's special property as this world's White Emperor. The White Emperor would never be alone. He was an army of one. He was the Mist Soul Army. The Mist Soul Army was a part of him and he was also an avatar of the Mist Soul Army. At this hour, he had just learned how to release the true power of the Mist Soul Army, then he showed a frightening power which was even stronger than Hua Huo's. Yes, this is it. You are strong. You are stronger than my greatest expectation and imagination. Yun-Q knew it better than anyone. She had known that this scumbag was the strongest being in this world since a long time ago. After all, he had 1 million brides' power. Even if your enemy is strong, you don't need to worry about anyone as long as you can release your true power. Don't worry, I won't let any enemy get close to you. I will protect you at all costs, because you are the unique emperor. Yun-Shi sighed. I have to fight against my childhood sweetheart. Is this my fate after putting on the White Emperor mask? I understand. After all, it's a battle of my own choosing. Chapter 257, Fierce Fighting. Ding, ding, ding. Transparent ice blades had covered half of the battlefield as more and more ice blades kept shooting out of the mist door behind Yun-Shi. Hua Huo brandished the reforged broken sword, blocking all the ice blades easily. Countless ice fragments exploded on the battlefield, creating a freezing field with an extremely cold temperature. Bang! Every time when Hua Huo blocked the ice blades, which also meant that she couldn't block other attacks at the same time, Yun-Q would always shoot an arrow of bloodthirsty demon Hound to her. At the same time, her mist soul would also appear beside Hua Huo and launch an assassination attack. Danger! 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 For the first time, Hua Huo's attack was suppressed. If it wasn't because the broken sword could emit a devastating light beam at the critical moment, Hua Huo probably couldn't hold on 1 minute. The person who caused her dilemma was Yun-Shi. He had to attack his childhood sweetheart for victory. Based on his understanding about Hua Huo and with the help of his White Emperor mask, Yun-Shi chose the best tactic to stop Hua Huo. He had Hua Huo's seed in his body. Naturally, he understood that once Hua Huo got close to him, the battle would be finished. Him and Yun-Q couldn't win against Hua Huo in close combat. Once Hua Huo used her true power, even if they were as strong as a dragon, they would still be killed by her in 1 hit. Therefore, they must stop Hua Huo to dictate the tempo of the battle. It was impossible to win against Hua Huo with a sword. In Yun-Shi's mind, The only sword skill that was a match for Hua Huo's sky flying sword was Yun Hai's sword master sword skill, Yun Hai's quadrant sword. Only a godlike sword skill can compete with another godlike sword skill. However, Yun Shi hadn't learned Yun Hai's quadrant skill, therefore, the tactic he used now was the only method that he could use to defeat Hua Huo. He would cooperate with Yun Q, stopping Hua Huo approaching him, so that she wouldn't have any chance to use her sword skill. His incredible energy from the 1,000,000 brides was the only way to beat back Hua Huo from a distance. Therefore, he opened the mist door and let the ice blades fly. Ding, ding, ding. No matter how many ice blades Hua Huo had broken, there would always be more and more ice blades shooting at her. Undoubtedly, Yun Shi had the strongest range attack ability in the entire water god's world. In Yun Q's eyes, Yun Shi's behavior was like throwing a mountainous counterweight on the balance of this battle. For the first time, Yun Q saw the light of winning this battle. It was also the first experience to Hua Huo to be forced into a disadvantage. It was quite incredible since she could always beat down her enemies with great ease. In Hua Huo's heart, this silver-masked man was the first person who had the same great talent like her. However, why don't I feel hostility from him? Why? We are enemies. We should fight at full tilt, but why can't I feel killing intention from his attacks? Compared to him, the archer in red was more competent. I can feel his sharp, undisguised killing intent coming from the bottom of his heart. Are you looking down on me? Do you think I don't deserve your full attack? A strange smile appeared on the corner of Hua Huo's mouth. I had never thought that I would be shown mercy by my enemy someday. I'm underestimated. Little Shi, if you know it, will you laugh at me? It looks like I should be more serious. No, too bad. Looking at Hua Huo's eyes, Yun Shi immediately realized that something was wrong. Hua Huo rarely showed such a smile on her face. She was a sunny girl and was always friendly to everyone. In Yun Shi's memory, she only showed such a smile a few times when she was extremely angry. The most vivid memory in Yun Shi's mind was when his sword skill teacher tried to teach him something in her room. Hua Huo suddenly broke into the room. At that time, she showed a similar smile on her face. Holding the broken sword, which was covered with bloody lights now, Hua Huo moved a step forward. Boom! Bright lights exploded from the broken sword and formed a round of blood-colored shield around her body. Yun Shi's ice blades hit on the shield and exploded, but caused no damage to the shield. She is coming. Yun Q looked at Hua Huo through her water god's mask. In her eyes, Hua Huo's aura was like a giant light column, connecting heaven and earth. 1. Hua Huo took a step forward, striding over 100 meters. It wasn't like the quicksilver motion Yun Shi had learned. Hua Huo wasn't simply increasing her speed, but actually strode over 100 meters in a step. Stop Hua Huo by using range attacks. Yun Shi's tactic wasn't wrong, but was too naive. Sky flying sword meant the will of hovering in the sky freely. It was impossible for the ice blades to stop Hua Huo. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Yun Q marked Hua Huo's path in her vision. After all, Hua Huo wasn't trying to hide her intention at all. She was going in a straight line, the simplest route. And at the destination of her route, it was the core of the Mist Soul Army, their emperor, Yun Shi. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Yun Q shot 16 arrows. Since she had known Hua Huo's route, it wasn't possible for the arrows to miss. 2. Hua Huo didn't even look at the 16 arrows and let them explode on the blood-colored shield. She walked the second step toward Yun Shi with a determined look. Compared to the first step, the second step crossed a longer distance, and the transparent halo under her feet was bigger. Accelerating, accelerating, accelerating. It was a sword skill Yun Shi didn't know and couldn't understand. Even as Hua Huo was surrounded by an army of 1,000,000, she still looked as if she was walking in the backyard of her house. In front of her sky-flying sword, all beings are equal. Once she used the sky-flying sword, she would never retreat. I didn't imagine that it was possible. Yun Q ground her teeth. Her body suddenly emitted a similar aura like Hua Huo, because she had used the secret skill from her water god's mask, multiple competencies enhancing. PS, Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild escapes arranged marriage. Chapter 258. At the end of fantasy, Yun Qiu's blood flowed in her body like surging wind waves. Unlike Yun Shi, her water god's mask could only let her control her blood, but it didn't mean she was weak. Life itself contained the strongest potential. Even if the most common people could burst with incredible strength when they were facing a life-or-death crisis or their emotions were stimulated. Such as, in order to save her child from a fallen house, a mother could lift a stone that was several times heavier than her body weight. Or, when a man is chased by a beast, his speed could be beyond human physical limits. In the final analysis, they just dug out their final potential, so that they could do that. However, mortals couldn't control this power. The people who temporarily obtained this power all died of heart failure after breaking out of the crisis. They were overdrawing their life force and releasing it all at one instant. No pain, no gain. This is an immutable rule of the universe. Yun Qiu's multiple competencies enhancing could increase her speed, strength, and explosive force, greatly raising her fighting capacity in an instant. An ordinary person's heart rate was 60 beats per minute, however, Yun Qiu's heart rate had increased to 200 beats per minute and was still rising. Not enough, be faster. Even though the water god's mask could automatically adjust her physiological state, her face still turned red due to her fast and strong heartbeat. Bang! 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 As the blood flowing in her vessels, Yun Qiu's heartbeat was becoming louder and clearer. The heart was the core of a human body. Naturally, her heart rate was so fast that her blood would also flow at a high speed. Yun Qiu's visual field was gradually covered by red color. Her eyes had become bloodshot. 3. Hua Huo took the third step. Her speed and impact force were becoming stronger and stronger as her footsteps echoed between the sky and the heaven. Whatever it was, Yun Shi's ice blade, Yun Qiu's trace arrow, or the dark elf mist soul's multiple assassination, none of them could stop Hua Huo from stepping forward. Since my demon hound can't stop you, I will stop you with my own blood. Yun Qiu put her fingertip on the bowstring. Just like Hua Huo used her blood to make her broken sword become an artifact, Yun Qiu's blood wasn't as strong as hers, but it could also enhance her black moon bow. This was the only thing Yun Qiu could do that her mist soul couldn't do, because her mist soul didn't have blood in her body. Staining with Yun Qiu's blood, the black moon bow emitted a bright, florid light. An arrow formed by blood automatically appeared on the bowstring and loaded on the black moon bow, Yun Qiu's artifact. This time, it wasn't a fierce demon hound but was a strange hummingbird with blood-red wings. The hummingbird couldn't lock on its target automatically, but its penetrating force had been greatly reinforced to the limit that Yun Qiu could reach. This was the second demon arrow Yun Qiu had learned, the arrow of blood hummingbird. Focusing all attack forces on one point. The hummingbird's blood-red wings could increase its speed to an incredible degree in the blink of an eye. Buzz! The arrow of blood hummingbird's attacking trajectory was instantly fixed on one point. Because it had abandoned all other properties and only focused on increasing its penetrating force, its trajectory couldn't be changed after being shot. The arrow's trajectory was overlapped with Hua Huo's moving trace. The arrow was directly locking on Hua Huo's heart. Kai. Unlike the arrow of bloodthirsty demon hound, the arrow of blood hummingbird only made an imperceptible sound when it left the bow. A bloodline flashed through the space between Yun Shi and Hua Huo. Ta. Hua Huo was still moving ahead, however, her speed reduced for a moment. At that moment, Yun Qiu's arrow of blood hummingbird directly pierced through Hua Huo's blood-colored shield. Unfortunately, the arrow still couldn't stop Hua Huo. After piercing through the shield, it was immediately blown away by Hua Huo's sword. Yun Qiu could clearly see that the arrow's speed was greatly reduced after piercing through the shield. No. Its speed is still not enough. To ordinary hero-ranked people, this arrow could take away their lives in an instant, but to Hua Huo, it could only cause her a bit of trouble. There was a wide gap between their powers. I can't win against her one-on-one. Fortunately, I'm not fighting alone. Do whatever you can to slow down her speed, otherwise, we both will die here, Yun Qiu said as she sacrificed her blood again. This time, she put 3 arrows of blood hummingbird on the black moon bow. Even though she could control her blood, Her blood wasn't infinite. If they couldn't defeat Hua Huo before her blood drained, they would all be killed. I know. Yunshi's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. He had gradually learned how to use his White Emperor mask on the battlefield. As expected, only a real, tough battle can force myself to break through and let me use my real potential. Fighting against his childhood sweetheart was stressful enough to Yunshi. He must think over and over again, trying his best to find out his invincible childhood sweetheart's weakness. The plan of stopping her in a distance by using ice blades had failed. It looked as if Hua Huo didn't have any weakness. She was a perfect female swordsman, a weapon master who wouldn't be bound by any existing tactic. Both of the sky and the earth were her battle. Schemes and intrigues were meaningless in front of her. Only the power at the same level with Hua Huo's can stop her. Do I have that power? I have that power. I can turn my imagination into reality. I can create anything with the infinite miss. Since I have obtained such an unreal power, then I shouldn't be bound by my common sense. Yunshi slowly closed his eyes. One by one, countless ice crystals emerged out of the mist door behind him. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 259, Crafting Mode. Imagine myself as the most powerful, with the 1,000,000 brides' hope and power behind me. Imagine what my existence as the White Emperor should be, with the endless power of Mist, Black Moon, the Lamia Queen, the Mermaid Queen, the Celian Queen's help. To what extent can I reach? I won't be bound by my common sense. I can do everything, turning the impossible dream into reality. In this world, I'm unique and the most powerful person. I'm the White Emperor. Hua Huo was the strongest swordsman Yunshi had ever known. Therefore, if he wanted to win against Hua Huo, he had to become the perfect White Emperor. I have the blessings from my 1,000,000 brides. Yunshi slowly raised his head and opened his eyes. Under the silver mask, there were countless swirls of mist inside his eyes. My girls believe in me, so I believe in them too. If this is my fate, then I won't escape from it. For my 1,000,000 brides are forging the strongest shield for me. Hundreds of millions of silver ice crystals flew out of the mist door behind Yunshi. It was the miracle formed by the 1,000,000 brides' will, a power that could turn anything into reality. Without warning, a crystal diamond wall suddenly appeared in front of Hua Huo and blocked her way. The center of the diamond wall was incredibly thick and the ice around it was still proliferating. Diamond Wall was the strongest fortress that could absorb the strongest brunt. Responding to Yunshi's hope, the will of his 1,000,000 brides naturally formed this ice fortress for him. Moreover, it wasn't a single ice wall. More and more ice walls appeared and interconnected together at an incredible speed. They were forming a castle. Hua Huo used her sky-flying bloodline to reforge her broken sword, an artifact. Yunshi summoned his 1,000,000 brides' power, forming an eternal ice castle. Arguably, due to Hua Huo's enormous pressure, Yunshi was forced to forget his common sense and really understand how to control his 1,000,000 brides' power. The Mist Soul Army wasn't just an army. Amongst the 1,000,000 brides, there were incomparable singers, excellent artisans, talented weapons makers, and proficient floriculturists. 1,000,000 brides meant millions of possibilities. They comprised almost all of the careers in the water god's world. At this moment, Yunshi was using the crafting mode, which was a miracle that even Hua Huo couldn't obtain. The ice blades were what Yunshi's brides had formed for him. After realizing that the ice blades couldn't stop Hua Huo, Yunshi changed his tactic. The ice fortress wasn't like the endless ice blades, it couldn't attack, but it was the strongest shield Yunshi and his 1,000,000 brides could imagine. What? Yunqiu was shocked. Yunhai had learned how to use his 1,000,000 brides' power. Undoubtedly, the ice fortress is a strategic weapon. As expected, he is this world's hope. Boom. Hua Huo bumped into the first ice wall. Instantly, countless cracks appeared on the 10 meters tall wall, and just after a few seconds, the ice wall had collapsed. However, there were still dozens of ice walls in front of Hua Huo, and they were still becoming thicker and firmer. After entering the crafting mode, Yunxi could create anything that existed in his mind. At the same time, the experiences from his million brides also helped him modify his imagination so that his desires could come true without breaking the rules of this world. Just like Hua Huo's unmatched impacting force, Yunxi's creative power was also infinite. This wasn't a one-on-one fight. It was a fight of 1,000,000 against one. Boom, boom, boom. After being covered by the blood-colored shield, Hua Huo was still moving forward, but her impacting force wasn't invincible in front of Yunxi's ice fortress. What a fantastic power! I had never imagined such a tactic. Yun Qiu held the Black Moon bow and waited for a suitable opportunity. Hua Huo looked annoyed by being blocked by the endless ice walls. What the hell is this? The enemy summoned an ice castle to stop me? He's too cunning. He must be cheating. Because I'm not fighting alone. Yunxi reinforced the ice castle and calculated Hua Huo's speed. For the first time, Yunxi suppressed his childhood sweetheart with his wisdom and imagination. As a swordsman, Hua Huo was perfect, but it didn't mean that she could conquer a city. No matter how many ice walls she had shattered, Yunxi could always build more and more walls around her before she moved. Finally, he successfully trapped Hua Huo in the huge ice castle. If one looked down from the sky, one could see over 1,000,000 mist souls moving between the mist door and the ice castle, working together to build the ice castle larger and larger. At first, the ice castle was just a prototype formed by dozens of ice walls. Under his million brides' efforts, it was finally shaped into a giant white ice lotus. Compared to the ice lotus, Hua Huo's figure was negligible right now. A cold light flashed through Yunxi's eyes. He waved his hand in the air. The next moment, the gaps amongst the ice lotus petals were filled with endless silver particles. It turned into a giant ice mountain and sealed Hua Huo inside it. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 260, Seal Hua Huo. Okay, she is temporarily sealed. Let's leave. Yunxi wiped away the sweat on his forehead. He held Yun Qiu's hand and motioned her to leave the battlefield with him. Don't you want to keep fighting? With your ice castle, we still stand a chance, Yun Qiu said and looked at Yunxi meaningfully. It's not like what you would say. You should know we can't defeat her now. Yunxi was surprised at Yun Qiu. They had sealed Hua Huo, but hadn't defeated her. It was still too difficult to defeat her at this moment. Yunxi knew his childhood sweetheart better than anyone. Ka. An ear-piercing cracking noise came from the ice mountain, giving Yunxi a shiver. As expected, even such a strong seal could only seal Hua Huo temporarily. Reinforce. Reinforce. Yunxi ordered 1/10 of the mist souls to stay on the battlefield and keep reinforcing the ice mountain. After that, he immediately held Yun Qiu's hand and left the battlefield. It was really a lot of pressure to fight against Hua Huo. I'd better go deep into the Sky Sword's camp before she breaks the ice mountain. You're gradually becoming mature. Yun Qiu discharged her multiple competencies enhancing, then looked at Yunxi in a meaningful way. However, you are still too tender-hearted towards females. We had a chance to kill her just now. No, we had no opportunity. Yunxi shook his head and answered decidedly, you should have found no matter how strong the attack she was facing, she could always become stronger. Even if you shot the 3 arrows of blood hummingbird at her, you wouldn't defeat her, because she wouldn't be defeated by such an attack. Yun Qiu frowned. She carefully remembered the battle and had to admit that Yun Hai was right. There really are geniuses who can make impossibility into a possibility in this world. Hua Huo and Yun Hai are the same types of geniuses. How powerful are his imagination and instinct? Why could he conjure up such an unconventional tactic? At least, Yun Qiu knew that she couldn't do it, because she couldn't imagine how to incorporate a non-existent phenomenon into her tactical formation. Hua Huo's sky-flying sword and Yunxi's crafting mode had all fed her sight. She realized that super geniuses really existed in this world. Vaguely, she also understood why the water god showed concern and solicitude for Yun Hai instead of her. Because the water god wishes the world to be changed. She could do the best under the known conditions, catching all the subtle possibilities. She could make everything better, however, she didn't have the inspiration to change this world. She was good at collecting information, developing tactics, and concentrating advantages to defeat her enemy, but she had no control over accidents and variables, because she had never expected a miracle. In her view, when a person had to pray for a miracle, it meant that the person had had no choice at that time. Essentially, a miracle was an aggregation of countless little probabilities, which also meant that it was unreliable. Before Yun Q met Hua Huo and Yun Shi, she never put miracle into her tactical system. Now, she understood that there were really humans who could create miracles with their own power and imagination. The things that were impossible to her was very likely to happen to them. Hua Huo's offensive power was overwhelming. She could hover in the sky before entering the hero rank. Yun Hai was supported by a whole world. He could use his million brides power to create an ice castle from nothing. Miracle was just an untouchable fantasy to ordinary people, but to them, it was a part of their lives. How enviable they are. Yun Q had to admit that Yun Hai was a super genius, except for his only shortcoming, lust for women. He was a hero-ranked baker, the water god's beloved apostle, the White Emperor, and the husband of 1 million girls. If possible, I should accept him. No. Yun Q shook her head. Her heart still refused to accept him. She couldn't bear his excessive lechery. Even though she had stained her hands with blood, she still couldn't accept a shameless, salacious man from the bottom of her heart. He had only left a very few good impressions in Yun Q's heart after she saw his crafting mode. Of course, the good impression was still negligible. She was just interested in his great battle talent. Apart from this, she had no favorable impression towards him at all, because she hated men who were disrespectful to women. Boom. 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 Bloody lights turned into earth-shaking impacting waves. Hua Huo was bombarding the ice walls like crazy. Every time she brandished her sword, dozens of ice walls would be broken. However, there were over 100,000 mist souls that were repairing the ice mountain. Their work had completely offset the damage Hua Huo's attacks had made. Hua Huo was completely sealed in the center of the ice mountain and couldn't find any chance to escape from it. Hua Huo felt as if she was punching a ball of cotton. Her strength was totally useless in front of the ice mountain. The silver-masked man seemed very familiar with her combat characteristics. He avoided fighting her face to face, instead, he sealed her in the ice mountain. Who is that man? Why does he know me so well? Hua Huo brandished her blood-colored sword in anger. She had to admit that she was at a disadvantage this time. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 261. The world's enemy on the surface of a giant mirror that was reflecting the scene of the battlefield. A girl army was moving forward, crushing all the slime armies who dared to block their way. In the distance, there was a silver-white lotus that was still becoming larger. A lot of mist souls were working on reinforcing Hua Huo's ice cage. Have they broken through the first area of the island? The dark shadow spider queen's slender toes lightly touched the scene on the mirror surface. She could clearly see that a part of the slime network at the periphery had turned grey, which meant that the slimes at that place had all been eliminated. Because a lot of slimes had been killed, sheer longness, the Sky Sword's descending speed was being greatly reduced. For the first time, the countdown in the slime network, which meant the process of the Sky Sword's coming, stagnated. I can't see this happening. It's time to let you make some contributions. Are the people who have obtained the great Sky Sword's power ready to strike? Show your powers to the enemies. The Spider Queen crossed her legs and commanded the young Sword Palace disciples. Understood. We will defeat the so-called White Emperor. We will teach that guy an impressive lesson. The Sword Palace disciples were all fired up. They all had a weird green eye on their foreheads, which was the extra life force the Sky Sword had conferred them all. The brand new power made them look good and feel better, and they did have a good reason to be confident. The green eyes conferred them a power that was close to the hero rank. Although the power couldn't really make them enter the hero rank, but they had so many partners. When they fought together, They had the confidence to beat down the White Emperor like relentlessly beating a dog in the water. They were already not their past themselves. They had regenerated. Of course, they didn't get to experience how strong Hua Huo's power was. Naturally, they didn't understand how frightening Yun Shi and Yun Qiu's power were, even though they saw Hua Huo being sealed by Yun Shi. Now, they started to imagine how to maltreat the White Emperor who dared to snatch their dream lovers. After the other Sword Palace disciples swarmed out of the cave, the Spider Queen looked at the two people who didn't follow her order and still stayed in the cave. The strongest two people. They were the twin witches, who had the best once-in-a-millennium talent. "Don't you go." The Spider Queen smiled, but her tone was cold. "It's not our battlefield." Red Lotus said to the Spider Queen sneeringly. "The final battle is coming." White Lotus was using her great circulation to predict the future. He, it looks like you are the only two smart people." The Spider Queen stretched herself. As the most remorseless predator in the void, her expression was deliberate at this moment. A mixed army appeared in front of Yun Shi's Mist Soul army. They are, after coming to this world, Yun Shi had seen the Starwing Knights girls, Hua Huo and Yun Qiu. Now, he saw other people he knew. Of course, he only knew very little about them. Apart from Child Yun He only knew that the other people were all the talented swordsmen from other areas of White Lotus sword domain. However, their auras were very strange. All the Sword Palace disciples had an ugly eye on their foreheads, and there was something green squirming under their skin. If Yun Shi closed his eyes, he would think that they were a group of slimes. "White Emperor, you are immoral. My Uryem and Ram. My little Sora and little Aoi. Damn it, White Emperor. I haven't let them know my love, I haven't proposed to them. How dare you to carry off my dream lover?" The young boys who had obtained the Sky Sword's power cried and accused Yun Shi of his crimes. There were a lot of kind-hearted, gentle girls in the Water God's world. These hot-blooded boys had all met their dream lovers after leaving this island. However, this apostle who was called White Emperor just married 1,000,000 brides. Unremarkably, their dream lovers had all become this man's brides, which was really a cruel fact to face for these young boys' tender hearts. That day, Yun Shi changed this world's fate. But also, he unintentionally made these Sword Palace disciples suffer the most painful blow of their lives. They will never forgive the White Emperor. It's your responsibility. You should solve it yourself. Yun Qiu took a glance at Yun Shi. Since he dared to marry 1,000,000 brides, then he should deal with the problems himself. Well, in fact, it's a misunderstanding. Yun Shi touched his nose, finding himself both funny and annoying. No one could know that the girls in the Water God's world were all so beautiful. It seemed that these Sword Palace disciples, who would become his classmates in the future, had all met their dream lovers. It was because this trial world was too real. The people who didn't know the truth would never think that this was just a dream. They really fell in love with the girls in this world. They read the girls' names loudly and firmly remembered them in their hearts. If Yun Qiu didn't make that expansion plan of 1,000,000 brides, these young boys, since they had great talents, would undoubtedly be able to catch these girls' hearts and have an unforgettable love story with their dream lovers. Unfortunately, Yun Shi had a hand in their failure and had become doomed. In a sense, Yun Shi snatched all of their dream lovers. No wonder that they stared at him in a towering rage. What an unexpected accident. At the beginning, Yun Shi only planned to be married to the Starwing Knights girls. What step was wrong that made himself become so many young boys' enemy? Well, let's stand here in silent tribute a second for these hot-hearted young boys first. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escape's Arranged Marriage. Chapter 262. Burn with rage. Even if it was their misunderstanding, Yun Shi still made his choice. "Sorry, I'm busy. I don't have time to chat with you. Let's finish the battle quickly, so that I can go to the next location earlier." After hearing Yun Shi's words, the Sword Palace disciples were immediately provoked. "You bastard, how dare you look down on us? We experienced hell-like torment and died countless times, so that we can obtain such a strong power. Yes, today we are no longer as we have been. In the name of the great evil god Tlahui's Kalpantikutli, we will punish you. Burn, 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 kill, 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 kill. They shouted with their wrath toward the sky. Especially child Yoon-hee, he stared Yoon-shi as if he was planning to kill Yoon-shi with his eyes. There was some strong emotion burning in his heart. Why? Why can this guy obtain the water god's blessing and marry 1,000,000 girls? If I was the chosen one, I could do much better than him. I can do 10,000 times better than the so-called White Emperor. Unfortunately, there was no holy animal alpaca in this world, otherwise, as the evil god Tlahui's Kalpantikutli's chosen one, he could beat down the White Emperor without the power from Shea Longness, the Sky Sword. If so, the beautiful mermaid queen would undoubtedly become my bride. When child Yoon-hee first heard the mermaid queen's song, his heart had been tightly captured by the non-human queen of the sea. Yoon-hee, don't be rash. Child San Quan shook the feather fan in his hand. As the evil god Tlahui's Kalpantikutli's first apostle, he could instinctively sense that this world was very strange. The scene in this world was too beautiful, like a garden of the rich, which was too weird as a natural world. Plus the endless mist and Shea Longness, the Sky Sword who suddenly appeared, child San Quan had an ominous presentiment. Who cares? Since we have obtained the new power, let's just use it. Compared to child San Quan, child Sai Nyan's idea was simple. I also found someone who deserved my love in this world, but she was snatched by the White Emperor. How can any man endure it? Yes, although child Sai Nyan was a battle mania, he also fell in love with someone in this world, the strongest high priestess in this world, the Lamia Queen. No word could be used to describe his feeling when he first saw the Lamia Queen. As if his bloodline had a natural response, he fell in love with the Lamia Queen at first sight. When he gazed at the Lamia Queen's slender screw-like tail, his heart experienced an unprecedented impact. For the first time, he realized that he wouldn't like battle better than a woman. It was just because his taste was special, so that ordinary females couldn't make his heart move. He had a very special sex obsession, which was undoubtedly different to ordinary human, but compared to Yoon-shi who had married so many girls of different races, his special interest was trivial. The Sword Palace disciples who were surrounding around the three childs had all lost their dream lovers due to Yoon-shi. Why wouldn't they feel angry and sad? I will kill the White Emperor. If he dies, the Lamia Queen would realize how weak he is and fall in love with me. The green eye twitched on child Sai Nyan's forehead, and the strange things squirmed inside his skin as if they would break out at any time. Maybe it was because of child Sai Nyan's excellent physique, he absorbed the most energy from the weird green eye. Amongst the Sword Palace disciples, he was the only person who had perfectly synchronized with his green eye. When other people's hero-ranked power still had obvious weakness, he had considerably approached the real hero rank. You are still too naive. Looking at child Sai Nyan, child Yoon-hee, and the other Sword Palace disciples who stared at Yoon-shi with anger and jealousy, child San Quan sighed. San Quan, don't you like the Celian Queen? Don't you want to punch the White Emperor's face? Child Yoon-hee asked back. As if it was their fate, the three childs had all fallen in love with one of the three water gods' high priestesses. Child San Quan also had a passion for the Celian Queen's intellectual beauty and saintly beauty. I like her, but it's impossible to have the thing you can't have. Well, so I said that you are too naive. Child San Quan shook his head. Probably no one can understand me, because my life path has determined that I will be lonely forever. As the evil god Tlahui's Kalpantikutli's apostle, I have offered my whole life as a sacrifice to the god. I will enjoy the beautiful scenery I can see, but I will never try to possess them. My goal is to help the evil god take back its power. Before that, I won't be controlled by my personal emotion. Humph. I won't shrink back like you. Child Yoon-hee was also the evil god Tlahui's Kalpantikutli's subordinate. His goal was specific from the beginning. Power. I want power. Only after having the strongest power, I can dominate and possess everything. Kill the White Emperor and let the Lamia Queen become my bride. This was what child Yoon-hee was yelling in his heart now. Yes, kill him. Child Sai Nyan rubbed his fists and wiped his palms. After obtaining the hero-ranked power, he was in an overconfident mood. It seems that they all want to tear you into pieces. Yun Qiu could clearly see the angry expressions on the Sword Palace disciples' faces. She shrugged her shoulders and stepped back, letting Yun Shi handle this situation alone. I will treat you to dinner after returning to the real world, so don't blame me. Anyway, you guys won't really die. Yun Shi murmured, then waved his hand. The Mist Soul Army started to rush to the Sword Palace disciples. The people who had ever experienced a war would never be able to imagine how frightening it was to face an army of 100,000. Especially under the Dark Elf Mist Soul's command, the Mist Soul Army paraded down the way as one man. The scene was undoubtedly thrilling. When the Sword Palace disciples looked at the Mist Soul Army eliminating the slime armies from the mirror, they would never imagine that it was so stifling to face such an army. Aregga. Shape-shifting. I'm not scared. I'm not scared. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 263, Absolute Superiority. In the face of the Mist Soul Army's strong pressure, the Sword Palace disciples released the powers they obtained from Shea Longness, the Sky Sword. One green thread after another came out from their skins and combined with their blood, transforming their life form rapidly. Based on their original physiques, they transformed into 4 types of slimes: strength, defense, speed, and special slime. The strength-type slimes were all 3 meters tall and had green muscles covering their whole bodies, looked as if they were green giants. The defense-type slimes had green scales on their bodies, which made them look like some weird puppets. The special-type slimes had a pair of translucent wings on their back. They floated in the air and the translucent wings flapped at a hypersonic speed with buzzing sounds. Only 3 Sword Palace disciples transformed into the special-type slimes, and not surprisingly, they were the 3 childs. They had great talent and strong power from the beginning, so their new forms were also much stronger than others. Child Sign Yan transformed into a big Hercules beetle. There was a horn on his forehead which looked like a sharp sword, and his face also became angular with a cold aura. Child San Quan transformed into a scyther. He had 3 pairs of lavender wings and a pair of blade-like arms. Child Yun He transformed into a longhorn beetle and looked as if he was wearing full plate armor, which made him look different than all the other Sword Palace disciples. A pair of antennas were erected on his longicorn head, straightly pointing at Yun Shi's location. These strange forms were the powers the Sky Sword had conferred on them. They were all the creatures the Sky Sword had eaten. The strange green eyes on their foreheads recorded the genes of these strong creatures and forcibly merged the genes with these Sword Palace disciples' bodies. The method was simple and rough, but it was indeed very effective to let them obtain strong powers instantly. The only weakness was that the duration of their transformation depended on their physiques. If the hosts were too weak, they may be unable to transform back to their human shapes or would retain some part of the non-human characteristics on their bodies. Of course, the common Sword Palace disciples didn't know this. Child San Quan and Child Yun He knew it, but they zipped their mouths closed, because they didn't worry about it. As the evil god Tlahui's Kalpantikutli's subordinates, they wouldn't face the disastrous result. As for Child Sign Yan, he was just an idiot and knew nothing about it. But his integration degree with the green eye was the highest, so his body wouldn't be contaminated either. Kill him. I would die with everlasting regret if I couldn't kill him today. I will let the White Emperor pay with his life. After transforming into slimes, the Sword Palace disciples howled and rushed to the Mist Soul Army with the real slimes. Build multiple prism system. After the battle with Hua Huo, Yun Shi had more inspirations about how to use his Mist Soul Army. Compared to create countless ice blades, which was too inefficient, to build wonders on the battlefield would be more effective to change the balance of a war. It was a better method to use his Mist Soul Army's power. One transparent prism after another appeared behind Yun Shi. They automatically floated in the air and combined with each other. They were refracting the lights of the sun. The mist door behind Yun Shi absorbed all the mist on the battlefield. For the first time, bright sunlights directly shined on the surface of the island of mist. Whoa! It's hot. I'm hot. I'm burning. You scum. Come out and face me, Stop using this dirty method. No. I'm going to be burned to death. Yunshi absorbed the mist with the Mist Soul Army's power and created the prisms using the crafting mode. The prisms refracted the light of the sun and focused the lights on a point on the ground. Although the Sword Palace disciples had obtained hero-ranked powers, their bodies were still flesh and blood. The strong sunlight on one point was fatal to them. The scene looked like a children's game, burning ants with a magnifying glass. The magnifying glass was the countless prisms Yunshi created, and the ants were these unlucky Sword Palace disciples. What a terrifying power! How could he create such a strong wonder so easily? We're screwed. When focusing on one point, the sunlight could reach thousands of degrees. Yunshi didn't aim the targets carefully. He just slightly adjusted the prism's angles, then a group of Sword Palace disciples had been burned into ashes. In the face of the scorching sunlight, the three childs had all fallen into despair. Although, they still thought that they could defeat Yunshi, but the sunlight of thousands of degrees taught them an impressive lesson. Although their bodies were far stronger than other Sword Palace disciples, they could only hold on a few seconds, then were burned to black coke just like everyone else. After obtaining the Million Brides power, Yunshi could borrow the whole world's power, turning impossibility into possibility. This was the real power of his crafting mode. The mist, ice, snow, ground, sea, sun, everything in this world could become his power. He could create all kinds of wonders with his Million Brides power, such as the ice castle he used to seal Hua Huo and the prism matrix he used to burn the Sword Palace disciples. There are only things that he cannot imagine, yet nothing he cannot achieve. What a pity to be your enemies, said Yun-Q. Yun-Q walked on the battlefield littered with ashes. She kicked several black cokes over with an expression of sympathy on her face. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escape's Arranged Marriage. Chapter 264. See the Mist Tide again. After Yunshi burned all the Sword Palace disciples, the Mist Soul Army pushed forward again. After finding out the right method to use his Mist Soul Army's power, Yunshi's full attack was like the liberating breeze, conquering the second island chain within half a day. Over 10 million slimes and dozens of slime nests became the Mist Soul Army's combat gains. The green slime bracelet were fed to appetite and almost became an armband, but its hand feel was still soft and rubbery. It's strange. Something is wrong. Although everything was going smoothly, Yun-Q still instinctively sensed something. Why didn't we see any golden slime kings? They are the cause of the slime network. How wouldn't we see any of them here? Yunshi also wondered about it. If Yun-Q's intelligence was right, golden slime kings were the most important sign of the Shea Longness, the Sky Sword's coming. At any rate, they weren't possible to miss these special slimes. However, they indeed didn't see any of them, as if these golden slime kings didn't exist from the beginning. Moreover, the Spider Woman didn't appear either. She should play a very important role in the Sky Sword's camp. Combined with the information she had obtained, Yun-Q sensed an ominous atmosphere. It looked like this time, Shea Longness, the Sky Sword's coming was different to any record in the past. Are you sure this is the right place? Yunshi remembered their purpose of coming to the Island of Mist. Find the Mist Demon to solve the biggest mystery in the Water God's world. As for encountered with the slime armies and figured out that Shea Longness, the Sky Sword would descend to this world from here, it was just a coincidence. It must be this place, otherwise, it can't explain why there are so many special slimes. It's the most obvious omen of the Sky Sword's coming. Yun-Hai, perhaps we don't have too much time. Yun-Q looked seriously at Yun-Shi. Although she had admitted that Yun-Hai was a man who could create miracles, however, Shea Longness was a Sky Sword. She wasn't an enemy who could be defeated by one or two miracles. Actually, Yun-Q didn't think that they could defeat Shea Longness. The only way to stop her was to eliminate all Golden Slime Kings before she came to this world. However, almost all Shea Longness enemies knew this tactic, but none of them had ever succeeded. The Golden Slime Kings themselves were already powerful hero-ranked creatures. Their bodies were immune to almost all magical attacks and physical attacks. To defeat a Golden Slime King was even more difficult than to defeat 10 hero-ranked humans at the same time. Yun Q had estimated her strongest attack damage, and the conclusion wasn't very optimistic. If she was alone, she could only kill one Golden Slime King, then she would have been exhausted. However, Yun Hai was different. Unlike her, Yun Hai had almost infinite energy from his million brides. Plus he had understood the crafting mode and the whole world was supporting him. His offensive power was nearly infinity. He was the only person who could eliminate all Golden Slime Kings. He was the only hope of saving this world. The smell, no, it's not the slime's smell. It is, through the mental bond with his Mist Soul army, Yunshi sensed a very strange aura in the air. What's that? Through her eagle's eye, Yun Q also saw the approaching phenomenon from a distance. In the deep cave, the Spider Queen observed the slime network, which was showing that a lot of slime nodes were disappearing. TSK, as expected, the game is just beginning. I should move now. The Spider Queen showed a strange smile on her face. She stood up and quickly sneaked into the darkness. If one looked down from the sky, one would see an extraordinarily large mist tide gushing out from a core area on the island of Mist. The mist tide rolled up 1,000 heaps of mist waves, rising to the sky. It wasn't exaggerated to say that it had blotted out the sky and covered up the earth. Why does it come at this time? Yun Q ground her teeth. They were just a step away from success. Once they went deep into the core area and killed the Golden Slime Kings, they would be able to stop the third stage of Shaolongness, the Sky Sword's coming. Why does the mist tide appear at this time with such an unprecedentedly large scale? According to the record she had read, such a large mist tide would bring unimaginable disaster to the whole world. Because the island of Mist was the source of the mist tide, no one, including the 3 high priestesses, was allowed to enter this forbidden zone. Calm down, Yun Q. That's not like you. The mist tide is a natural phenomenon that is far beyond our control. Yunshi found that the ice castle, including the 100,000 mist souls around it, had all disappeared in the mist tide, which meant that some unknown power in the mist tide was nibbling his power. Just after a few seconds, he had lost the connection with the mist souls in the mist tide. Shuffle. A small silver creature flew past Yun Shi and Yun Q with cold mist spreading to the air from its wings. The mist on its wings weren't some natural phenomenon due to the fall of temperature, but was something much more dangerous. The butterfly of death. Yun Q opened her eyes wide. It was the most dangerous creature in the mist tide, because no one could survive after seeing it, including the people who had the water god's blessing. Only a few people who had the water god's bloodline could hold out a little longer. After recording the butterfly of death in their notes, they also died in the mist tide. The beautiful butterfly was the veritable avatar of death in the water god's world. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 265. The Flying Butterflies of Death. The Island of Mist was once seized by the slimes, then was occupied by Yun Shi's Mist Soul army. Now, it returned to its initial state. Countless twisted mists covered the old island and brought it back to the world of mist and silence. Mist Demon, Yun Shi remembered the information the stars had offered him. He thought that he was going to touch the truth of this world's mist. One silver butterfly after another flew out of the silent, noiseless world of mist, rose and danced in a happy mood around Yun Shi and Yun Q. Yun Shi could feel no hostility from these butterflies. Apart from the cold temperature their wings had rolled up, he didn't understand why they were connected with death in people's eyes. I remember in the notes, their wings were red. Yun Q looked at the silver butterflies warily. In records, they had killed countless people. Once upon a time, even a Celian queen was killed by the butterflies of death. Normally, all Celian queens were blessed by the water god, so they shouldn't be killed in the mist tide. However, a Celian queen still died after seeing the red butterflies, only leaving a note which recorded the existence of these butterflies. The Celian queen wrote, "What did I see? They are red butterflies. So beautiful, so graceful. I'm dying, they are the signs of death. My consciousness is becoming blurred, This is the answer, of mist. This was her last entry that she had recorded. This was one of the few records about the most frightening phenomenon in the mist tide. The water god's high priestess Death confirmed the existence of the butterfly of death. And now, the silver butterflies in front of Yun Shi and Yun Q looked even stronger than the red butterflies in the records. Although they just flew in the air and had no hostility, Yun Q still sensed a suffocating smell of death. It wasn't like the suffocating smell from Hua Huo. Hua Huo was as strong as an erupting volcano, and these butterflies of death were as strong as colorless, tasteless poison, killing people without any omen. My blood flow velocity is slowed down. Through her water god's mask, Yun Q observed her own vital sign. Death was approaching her, even though she had already reached the hero rank. They were indeed the most dangerous fantastic creatures in this world. They are telling me something. Yun Shi could also feel that the butterflies of death were absorbing his life force. It seemed to be the butterfly's special ability, life siphon. However, Yun Shi had his 1,000,000 bride's blessing. The slowly drain of his life force was negligible to him. If the butterflies wanted to kill him in this method, it would probably take them 1,000 years, and the condition was only tenable when Yun Shi didn't resist it. In fact, after Yun Shi noticed the drain of his life force, his body had automatically cut off these butterflies' life siphon. One silver butterfly after another landed on Yun Shi's shoulders. It seemed that they were very interested in this man who was immune to their life siphon. It looks like they like you. Can these butterflies also be captivated by your physique? Yun Q felt that she didn't understand Yun Shi's sexual orientation at all. The lamias were okay, and the mermaids were also fine. Now the butterflies are also captivated by you. How wide your hunting ground is. Perhaps it's due to my water god's mask. I think nothing in this world has no relationship with the water god. It's very likely that the thing hiding in the island of mist is more amazing than our imagination. Yun Shi touched a butterfly of death. The small, cute butterfly raised its head and emitted soft silver light from its body, exposing its real appearance. Under its silver wings, it was a small fairy-like girl. Her delicate face looked as if she was carved by the most excellent sculptor, because her whole body was flawless. Her bright eyes looked like a pair of crystal black gems, and the color of her skin looked like the most beautiful sakura petal. What made Yun Shi blush was that the little fairy girls didn't wear anything. Apart from a layer of silver lights on their bodies, they were literally wearing nothing. Waving their big butterfly wings around Yun Shi, they flew in the air light-heartedly and didn't mind that Yun Shi had taken in everything at a glance at all. They have intelligence. Yun Q surprisedly looked at the butterflies of death who dispelled their disguises and showed their true appearances in front of her and Yun Shi. Why? The butterflies of death, the most dangerous avatars of death, seemed to be scared by Yun Q's voice. They flew to Yun Shi one by one, staying far away from Yun Q. Yun Shi observed their faces and found that their eyes had different colors. Some of them had deep black eyes, some of them had holy silver eyes, and some of them had emerald green eyes. When he looked carefully, he could even see that their pupils were changing colors as they moved. Their pointy ears were neither too long nor too short, which were similar to the commander of the Mist Soul armies, the Dark Elf's ears. Can they be the culprits of the Mist Tide? Yun Q didn't expect that the scariest Deathbringers looked so cute. No. They are just the beings living inside the Mist Tide. They are the Mist Tide's minions. Yun Shi said definitely, as he stroked the butterfly's wings. Chapter 266. The Guides. How do you know this? Yun Q's pupils contracted. She had read almost all the information about the Mist Tide, but she still didn't know this. They told me. Yun Shi's fingertip lightly touched a butterfly of death's wing. The butterfly of death flapped its wings and happily flew around Yun Shi. Soon after, its partners joined its dance. What is exactly the so-called mist demon? Yun Q held her shoulders in her arms. She could clearly feel the butterfly's differential treatment towards her and Yun Shi, so she gazed at the butterflies with an unpleasant look. We will know very soon. Yun Shi could feel that something in the mist was summoning him. The huge, thick mist was rolled up. A large thing was approaching them. After a while, the overlord at the top of the food chain on the island of Mist, the bone dragon appeared. It's a bone dragon. After seeing the monster, Yoon Kyu immediately stepped up her vigilance. It wasn't a half-dragon like her past partner, the male fiery dragon, but a real super monster who transformed from a dead dragon's body. It was said that after absorbing the air of death for countless years, some bone dragons could even become stronger than when they were alive. Generally, most dragons lived in the dragon god's domain, but bone dragons were a taboo there. Once a dragon died, its partners would bring its body back to the grave of dragons. Only the dragons that died in another god's domains would transform into bone dragons under some special environments. For example, this bone dragon in front of Yoon Shi and Yoon Kyu Ga. The bone dragon opened its mouth and tried to say something. However, its vocal cords had already eroded in the endless time, so it couldn't speak anything. Hiss. The bone dragon also realized it. It angrily prodded the ground with its claws, then turned around and patted the ground with its sharp tail. It's telling us to follow it, the butterflies said so. Yoon Shi first mumbled something with the butterflies of death, then told Yoon Kyu the answer in an uncertain tone. Is it the mist demon? Yoon Kyu looked at the bone dragon in awe. Even the male fiery dragon, who had only a portion of dragon blood, could automatically enter the hero rank after becoming mature, not to mention a real dragon. She couldn't imagine how strong the bone dragon was. Perhaps it had the power to destroy the entire water god's world. Obviously, the bone dragon had lived countless years on the island of Mist. The whole island should have become its territory. It wasn't surprising to know that this bone dragon was the Mist Demon, the chief criminal of the Mist Tide in this world. No. It's just one of the Mist Demon's subordinates, just like these children. Yoon Shi listened to the butterflies' whispers. The butterflies' language wasn't any language Yoon Shi had ever known. They talked through the spirit network amongst them, and only the person who was allowed to join the network could hear their voices. Similarly, if they didn't want to be seen, no one could see their true appearances. They were the minions of the mist, the avatars of death. They didn't absorb living beings' life forces on purpose, but they would bring countless deaths to the places they had passed, because they were the special existences who were born in the air of death. Where had the thickest air of death? Undoubtedly, it was on the island of Mist, the nightmare of this world. What is exactly the Mist Demon? Yoon Kyu asked. Probably it's unlike anything you have imagined. Yoon Shi couldn't describe the Mist Demon's appearance. The butterflies had told him. Very big, very light, very white, very cute, very cute. From the words the butterflies had told him, Yoon Shi couldn't imagine what thing was very big, light, white, and cute. It seemed that if they wanted to know the Mist Demon's real appearance, they had to go to see the Mist Demon with their own eyes. Anyway, the island had become a battlefield. If the Mist Demon is on our side, we should invite it to join our camp. After finding that Yoon Shi could communicate with the legendary butterflies of death, Yoon Kyu quickly made her judgment. The more help they could find, the more possibilities they would be able to defeat Shea Longness, the Sky Sword. If the Mist Demon could possibly join the Water God's camp, then it was worth a try. Of course. I'm also curious about the Mist Demon's true appearance. To Yoon Shi, it was also very important, because it was the core of one of his 4 side quests. The bone dragon impatiently rolled Yoon Shi and Yoon Kyu up with its tail and put them on its back. Then it started to run quickly in the mist. The silver butterflies flew besides the bone dragon, going forward at full speed towards the deepest area in the mist. On the road, Yoon Shi and Yoon Kyu witnessed a lot of weird creatures. The mist mantis, who had a pair of transparent forelimbs and could sneak in the mist. The mist tengu, who had a long nose and a pair of big feather wings. The red butterflies of death, who were recorded in the notes about the mist tide. After the unprecedented mist tide appeared, the island of Mist became these weird but powerful mist creatures' territory again. The slimes had once occupied the whole island, but now, they were hunted by the mist creatures and their numbers were rapidly dwindling. Yoon Shi's Mist Soul Army didn't need to launch any attack now, because the slimes on the whole island had been annihilated. Especially when the red butterflies flew past, even the strongest slimes would die instantly. Under the Dark Shadow Spider Queen's control, the slimes occupied the whole island after half a month, but when the mist tide came, they were utterly routed. The whole island of mist was becoming a silent world again. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 267, The Mist Demon's Real Appearance. After the mist tide, the island of mist returned to its original situation. The slime armies had all been eliminated, and various weird mist creatures, who once tortured the Sword Palace disciples to death, all revived. These weird mist creatures had various shapes, but they had the same characteristic: silence. Even when they hunted and ate each other, they didn't make any noises. Killing in silence and dying in silence. The whole island of mist was like a silent world, rejecting all living beings from the outside world. Occasionally, several slimes who were good at hiding popped out from the ground, but before they moved their round bodies, mist creatures had found them, rushed forward and chomped them. After losing their predominance and their leader, the Dark Shadow Spider Queen, even the giant slimes couldn't hold any longer in front of these mist creatures. On the contrary, after eating the special slimes, the mist creatures started a new round of evolution. Yun Shi and Yun Q watched this scene from the beginning to the end. They were really looking forward to seeing the Mist Demon. Maybe the Mist Demon could be a trump card on the balance of their war with Shea Longness, the Sky Sword. Even though in the eyes of the local people of this world, the Mist Demon was the most frightening nightmare and the enemy of all living beings, but it had nothing to do with them. In order to defeat the Sky Sword, Yun Q even made the crazy expansion plan of 1 million brides, not to mention to cooperating with the Mist Demon. For victory, I can do everything. Can you tell me more about the Mist Demon? Listening to the butterfly's whispers, Yun Shi felt more confused about the Mist Demon's true appearance. Very good, very puff. Woohoo. Woohoo. Puff. Puff. As the highest butterflies of death, these silver butterflies talked with Yun Shi happily. Unfortunately, their word orders were incoherent and their adjectives were messy. Perhaps it was because they had never talked with other intelligent beings before, their hearts were as pure as a white paper. They didn't know how to organize their words and said anything that popped into their minds. Finally, Yun Shi confirmed that the Mist Demon had the following features. The Mist Demon's body is very big. The Mist Demon is very soft, and often makes mysterious sounds such as woo-hoo, boo-hoo, puff, woe. In the eyes of the butterflies of death, the Mist Demon is trustworthy. It is a very special being. After scraping these features together, a sleeping giant appeared in Yun Shi's mind. The butterflies of death were the dead fairies around the giant. The bone dragon was the giant's guardian. The whole island of mist was created for the giant, and the giant had a very special relationship with the water god's world. The mist tide was probably a disaster caused by the giant, and it was also a part of this world's rules. When the bone dragon ran about wildly, Yun Shi and Yun Q finally arrived at the mysterious core area of the island, where was probably a place that no human has ever stepped on from the birth of this world. Is this the center of the island of mist? Looking at the opening world in front of him, Yun Shi raised up his head with a surprised look. In front of Yun Shi and Yun Q was a great tree covering the sky. As being surrounded by milky white mists, the great tree's crown had broken into the clouds in the faraway sky. Countless silver branches drooped to the ground from the great tree. When winds whipped across them, they made strange woo-hoo, woo-hoo and puff, puff echoes, which sounded like the great tree's breathings. One 100 meters tall totem pole after another circled around the great tree, and these totem poles were standing tall and upright in a silver lake. One silver butterflies after another flew and danced around the totem poles with emitting soft white lights. Is it the Mist Demon? Most likely. After all, the tree meets all the features. Yun Shi's eyes slowly looked the tree up and down. Suddenly, he saw a large shadow in the deepest side of the silver lake. When he looked at the shadow carefully, a familiar feeling filled his heart. It has translucent diamond head and 3 sharp silver horns. Can it be? Yun Shi wiped his eyes as his back began to soak in cold sweat. Yun Q also saw its true appearance. Her eyes contracted. It had a silver streamlined body and graceful sleeping posture, but nothing could cover the great sense of pressure they had when they saw it. Even if it had folded its silver-blue wings, Yunshi didn't think that he could misjudge that which he saw. The White Holy Dragon, the chief criminal who broke the void door of White Lotus Sword Domain. The chief criminal who knocked down the floating ship White Lotus inadvertently. The chief criminal who made Yunshi have to enter this trial, the apostle from the outside God's domain. It was a subordinate of one of Yunshi's ex-girlfriends, the Dragon God. And also, it was the mysterious main character of Yunshi's side quest too. Yunshi wondered why he couldn't find any clue about this side quest. Now, he knew the answer. Optional side quest 2, the Apostle's Call. A great apostle has reached this world. Swear your loyalty to her and become a Dragon God subordinate. You can choose this side quest after you join Water God's camp. Optional side quest 3, the truth about the mist. The people on the island are living in a world that is surrounded by endless mist. Go find the secret and expose the truth. It seemed that the sleeping silver dragon felt something. It lightly shook its tail and emitted an obscure sound from its mouth. Coo. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 268. How to strike up a conversation with a dragon. 1. Are you kidding me? How can I accomplish this quest? Looking at the sleeping white holy dragon, who was also known as a legend-ranked creature that could break through the void, Yunshi thought that the stars must be making fun of him. This quest wasn't at the same level as the other 3 side quests. How could he persuade the apostle, who crossed the void to catch him, to join his camp? On this point, Yun-Q didn't perform any better than him. The legend-ranked creature's fear pressure, even though it was just breathing in sleeping, was still almost fatal to both of them. About this, I have no idea. For the first time, Yun-Q admitted that she could do nothing. In front of the legend-ranked dragon, no tactic would be effective. Even if she sacrificed herself, her hero-ranked attack wouldn't even be able to pierce through the white holy dragon's skin. Generally, no legend-ranked beings were allowed to enter a common god's domains, because they were too strong. Even if they did nothing and just came to a god's domain, their existence itself would wreak havoc to the domain. Typhoons, thunderstorms, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. If a god's domain was too small, it would burst open due to the legend's strong power. The White Holy Dragon was such a legend-ranked creature. Its power was actually beyond the limit of the energy hierarchy in most gods' domains. There was no way to fight against such a strong creature. It's strange. Can this world accommodate 2 legend-ranked beings? When the initial shock wore off, this question immediately appeared in Yun-Q's mind. The water god's world, just like its name had showed, it had already had a master, the water god, who was undoubtedly at the legend rank. Plus the frightening white holy dragon, and Shea Longness, the sky sword who was trying to enter this world could accommodate 3 legend-ranked beings. But it can't be possible. For example, White Lotus Sword Domain was a low-level sword domain and it couldn't even let a legend-ranked being enter it. It was apparent that the water god's world wasn't larger than White Lotus Sword Domain. How could it hold so many legend-ranked beings? This world is too strange. Yun-Q immediately sensed danger from it. Yun-Q, do you understand dragon language? Yun-Shi smiled bitterly and asked Yun-Q with expectation. They had to do it. In Yun-Shi's 3 side quests, this side quest was apparently very important. He must gain the sleeping white holy dragon's trust. Who would expect that the mist demon had such a good relationship with the white holy dragon? Through the clear lake, Yun-Shi could clearly see that the mist demon was wrapping around the white holy dragon's body with its roots. Countless milky white light points secreted from the roots and were absorbed by the dragon's huge body. The milky white light points were full of vitality. Apparently, the mist demon was helping the white holy dragon heal itself. They had a special relationship. Combined with the side quest 2, Yun-Shi confirmed that the white holy dragon was here for some reason. It seemed that this legend-ranked creature had a friendly relation with the water god. But what could hurt the legend-ranked white holy dragon so badly? Yun-Shi had no clue. I know a little about dragon language. Yun-Q wasn't bragging. She once had a battle pet, the male fiery dragon, so she did studied dragon language very hard once upon a time. Compared to human languages, dragon language was hard to understand. Human vocal cords weren't likely to pronounce dragon language very precisely, because only dragons could master this language instinctively. Yun Qiu's understanding about dragon language was like a baby's understanding about human language. She could only say very few sentences such as "let's have dinner," "sorry," "thank you," and "this is a pen." "Okay, I want to talk with the white holy dragon. Can you translate my words?" Yun Qi took a deep breath and walked forward. The stars wouldn't give him a quest that was impossible to accomplish. Since the side quest 2 existed, then there must be a method to solve it. What change had happened to him? Undoubtedly, it was he has become the water god's apostle. Yun Qi thought that this was his only turning point. "I will do my best." Yun Qiu didn't know what Yun Qi was going to do, but she appreciated his courage. Not all people dared to open their mouths after seeing such a huge, legend-ranked dragon. Even though she had experienced countless battles, she still hadn't had any contact with any legend-ranked supreme beings. "Fine, let's go." Yun Qi put on a bold face. He walked to the sleeping white holy dragon step by step as if he was walking to the execution ground. Thick mists gushed out of the white emperor mask and formed a palm of 1 kilometer, then lightly touched the sleeping dragon's head. As if a switch in the dragon's body was turned on, the white holy dragon was awakened. It slowly opened its 2 giant eyes and gazed at Yun Qi and the mist palm with a confused look. "Sorry, excuse me for bothering you." Yun Qi apologized to the white holy dragon for his rude behavior. "Hello, good morning." "Hello, good morning," Yun Qiu said, trying her best to translate for Yun Qi. Yun Qiu was beating her brains out trying to remember the dragon language she had learned. In her memory, this sentence should be "sorry, excuse me for bothering you" in dragon language. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 269, How to Strike Up a Conversation with a Dragon, 2. The huge white holy dragon's body was surrounded by an aura that was simply breathtaking. The legend-ranked creature, whose sighting had already shook the sky and earth. It appeared that it hadn't known what was happening. Unconsciously, it slightly shook its slender tail. To the dragon, it was a natural movement, just like humans would curl up when they woke up on a cold winter morning. However, the white holy dragon's body was over 100,000 meters long. It just simply shook its tail, then caused an earthquake on the island. The seismic origin was the dragon's tail. With ear-piercing whistles, hundreds of meters tall waves were rolled up and pounded heavily on the mist demon tree's roots. Shuffle. The mist demon tree quickly proliferated several branches of 10 kilometers long, tying the dragon's tail in case that it caused much larger earthquakes and surges. Such a negligible movement had caused such a huge disaster that it could even kill all the residents of a city of 100,000 people. This was how terrible a legend-ranked being could be. It wasn't even on purpose or for killing, it was simply because such a legend-ranked being's existence itself was just so overwhelmingly powerful. Just like a meteorite falling into a pond, the aftermath of that would be enough to kill all the fish and prawns. Unfortunately, most ordinary beings, in all but a few gods' domains, were like the unlucky fish and prawns in the pond. Only hero-ranked beings, such as Yun Qi and Yun Qiu, could survive such a disaster, and only just survive. The white holy dragon didn't realize what a disaster it had caused. After shaking its tail, it murmured something and closed its eyes again. "Oh, Yasu am I? What does this mean?" As Yun Qi wiped his forehead. When your conversation partner was a dragon of 100,000 meters long, nothing you could do could be described as excessive caution. When the dragon had its tail, his heart had almost jumped out of his throat. "Will I die here?" Looking at the white holy dragon's huge tail, Yun Qi felt as if he had seen the end of the world. "I think it means good night." Yun Qiu was even more nervous than Yun Qi, because she knew how terrible a legend rank being could be better than him. If it was her, she wouldn't talk to the dragon at all. After all, if an ant tried to stop a human, would the human even realize it? Compared to the dragon's long life, humans, even hero-ranked humans, were like mayflies who are born in the morning and died at night. Not to mention that it was a legend-ranked white holy dragon, the rarest divine dragon who was blessed by the dragon god. What was Yun Hai thinking? How dare him talk to the dragon and even touch its head? Yun Qiu thought that she may be unable to understand his way of thinking for the rest of her life. Maybe she could call it one of the most incredible mysteries in the universe. Good night. Yun Shi looked at the dragon oddly. The silver dragon could even destroy a world, and now, it is sleeping in. Okay, Yun Shi knew it was being irreverent to the dragon, because, why would such a holy, strong dragon sleep in like a spoiled little girl? But his instinct told him that it was the truth. Yun Hai, I know you are blessed by the water god, so probably this silver dragon won't attack you. But, it's time to give up. Yun Qiu rarely gave Yun Shi suggestions, but, it was really too dangerous to stand here and talk to the silver dragon. An ant couldn't have any relationship with a human, it was natural that they couldn't talk with the silver dragon. When the gap between their life levels was too wide, they should learn to give up. We are not even as large as one of the dragon's scales. What gives Yun Hai the guts to face the dragon and even touch its head? Even if he didn't have a fear of dying, there should be a limit to his courage. Sorry, I won't give up, because I have to do this. Yun Shi smiled bitterly. If he had any other choice, he wouldn't do this from the start. Apparently, the stars were exposing his past life to him bit by bit in this manner. Now, he was wearing the White Emperor mask, so he wasn't afraid of his true identity being exposed. There wouldn't be a better chance than this to get in touch with his ex-girlfriend's apostles. Know the enemy and know yourself, and you can fight 100 battles without defeat. If he wanted to survive his 4 ex-girlfriends hunting him, he must collect the information from their apostles. This is a dream world, and my identity is the water god's apostle, Yun Hai, but not that of the wanted star child. Yun Shi kept repeating that to himself over and over. Finally he pulled up his socks and touched the dragon's head with the mist palm again. Because he often rubbed the green slime gem, he became pretty skillful at this. His strength and stroke technique were all fine-tuned. Apparently, Yun Shi wasn't just plowing the air. The white holy dragon showed a satisfied look while sleeping and subconsciously swung his long tail on the ground. The earth and the water were roaring. Due to its huge body, the dragon's petty movements caused one earthquake after another. Hello. 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 Yun Qiu thought that she must be crazy. She was actually offending a sleeping dragon together with Yun Hai. Even if the dragon wasn't bloodthirsty and it just rolled over in his sleep, she and Yun Shi would be crushed to death. Why is Yun Hai so brave? He had stroked the white holy dragon's head so many times. She just watched Yun Shi's behavior, then she imagined his very own 108 methods of death. Oh, he is still stroking the dragon. He is touching the dragon's horns. Doesn't he know that no dragon would allow any stranger to touch their horns? To dragons, their horns were like the elves' sharp-pointed ears, containing a very special meaning. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 270, How to Strike Up a Conversation with a Dragon, 3. No matter whether it was the dark elf who lived in the darkness or the forest elf who lived under the sun, elves wouldn't allow any stranger to touch their sharp-pointed ears. Because the ears were some of the elves' most sensitive parts. Even a light touch would let them feel a strong stimulation. Although Yun Shi had touched Yun Qiu's ears and some much more private parts, it doesn't mean that Yun Qiu didn't mind it. If there had been any other choice, she wouldn't let that shameless, salacious man, Yun Hai, put a finger on her ears or anywhere else for that matter. In the same way, dragons were even more haughty. Touching their horns was a much more offensive move. At least, the people who touched an elf's ear had a chance of surviving the elf's deadly chase, but it was even rarer that any being could survive an angry dragon's burning breath. Not to mention that the white holy dragon was of legend rank. Yun Hai was really too foolhardy. Gawu. Incredibly, Yun Shi's touch didn't provoke the dragon. On the contrary, the dragon emitted a satisfied sound acting like a spoiled child. Due to the muffled and pleasant dragon roar, circles of ripples were sent across the crystal-clear surface of the water. What happened? Why haven't you been burned to death? Yun Q looked at Yun Shi in silent amazement. He was still stroking the dragon's head skillfully, and it seemed that the silver dragon was enjoying his strokes, which was really contrary to her common sense. Isn't it common sense that dragons won't let any stranger touch their heads? Isn't it strange that Yun Hai hasn't been burned to death by the dragon's roaring flame breath? Well, who can fill me in on what is happening? Puff. Seeing that the sleeping dragon wasn't against his stroking, Yun Shi let out a sigh of relief. Why did I choose such a dangerous move? Yun Shi himself also didn't understand it. He just watched the wounds on the sleeping dragon's body and then stroked its head subconsciously. A person asked a mountain climber, "Why do you like climbing the mountain?" "Mountain climbing is dangerous and you may lose your life on the way." The mountain climber told the person, "Because it's there." Why did Yun Shi lend a hand to the wounded white holy dragon? Yun Shi's answer was, "Because I wanted to." Although it was a legend-ranked being who could even destroy the world, Yun Shi still did it by an irresistible impulse after seeing its wounds. Even though the dragon was injured, it was still strong enough to squash Yun Shi and Yun Q simply by rolling its body. "Hello, good morning." "Hello, good morning." Yun Q shook with fear looking at Yun Shi's irreverent movements and kept awakening the white holy dragon with her terrible dragon language. It's time to wake up. Yun Shi felt nervous too. However, as he stroked the dragon's head, he could gradually feel the dragon's emotion. It seemed that it was very satisfied. Gawu. After spitting several bubbles from its mouth, the white holy dragon opened its dreamy eyes again and looked around in confusion. What happened? The last scene in its memory was a cold figure. In front of the giant door, she indifferently looked at it rushing to the door, then drew her frightening sword. 3 strands of ice blue hair fluttered with the wind on her forehead. Her sword, which was engraved with an old compass, emitted a frightening aura that could even freeze time and space. "Leave. You can't get in this world. I won't open the door for you." She was the guardian of the door, and a formidable foe who could slaughter a legend-ranked dragon easily. Even knowing that clearly, it didn't stop. Even it knew that it would face the frightening sword, it still wanted to get through the door. The cold silver sword blade was brandished against the dragon without mercy. "I'm frightened. I'm frightened. For the first time in my life, I'm facing such a cold terror. I will die. If the sword stabbed into my heart, I would be killed, not just bleeding some blood. No, I can't die. I must get through the door, because there is a person behind the door who deserves me to risk my life. For this goal, I won't hesitate to face this frightened guardian of the door." The memories gradually became clear. The silver dragon shook its head. "Now, have I succeeded?" This place was indeed the place it was planning to go. It looked around and saw the huge tree, which had countless branches and roots, sweet scent and warm milky white tree saps. Everything was the same as it had heard. It had arrived at its destination. What a long dream it was. In its dream, it dreamed that it became very small and got acquainted with many kind-hearted human friends. Then, it fell into sleep unknowingly again. In its dream, it was stroked by someone gently. It had never had such a warm experience, but it had waited for a very long time that had seemed endless. "Papa?" The white holy dragon muttered looking at the strange man floating in front of it. "Yes, he is the man. I smell a familiar scent from his body. He is the person I was looking for. He has the smell in my old vague memories." How to translate this word? Yun Shi looked at the dragon in confusion. Dragon language was indeed very difficult, because he didn't even know whether the dragon was talking to him. Well, even across all God's domains in all languages, it has the same meaning. Yun Q was sure that the 2 reduplicated words had the same meaning as what they were in human languages. "It was calling you, Father?" Yun Q felt absurd, but it was indeed what the white holy dragon had said. "What? No, I'm not." The perspiration poured down Yun Shi's face. "How can it be possible that I have any relationship with the dragon? Wa Tasha Wa, Su Mi Ma Se N." The dragon apologized. It also realized that it made a mistake, but it still gazed at Yun Shi with a strange look. "Well, this sentence means sorry. I had just woken up and was still pretty much out of it." Yun-Q let out a sigh of relief. As expected, it was just a mistake. Fortunately, it seemed that the dragon was easy to speak with. For the current results, Yun-Hai's behavior had been right. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.